So I just hit go. There it is. Okay. Sorry, guys. Wasn't starting, and I wasn't sure what was happening. It's happening. It's starting. And as we enjoy the Viewstone Fortress, courtesy of 3D artist Chetan Biswas. Thank you very much, Chetan. So guys, when I was a young man, late 90s, let's call it, I went to Washington, D.C. to see one Ghostface Killer of the Wu-Tang Clan perform a concert. Also appearing Capadonna. And great show, small club. They didn't come on stage until like damn near 2 o'clock. I mean, they kept us waiting so long. I mean, they were pulling rappers out of the crowd. Anybody who wanted to rap a little bit could rap. But finally, when Ghostface came on, it was worth it. And that's the theme of today. It took me a while to get online today, Sean. It really did. Today's stream almost not brought to you by Manta Sleep. I fell asleep on my couch with my Manta Sleep mask. I was out like a light. And I was a little bit late, but we're going to deliver, and like Ghostface Killer, we're going to deliver the spooky, because it is Halloween. Oh, look at this. The segues are already, I'm awake, yes. Hey, Sean, here with 1,000 voices. Thank you for joining me.
No problem. Happy to be here. Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to futz with.
Raise the mother ruckus.
But so glad to be here. Had a basketball tournament I was telling you about today.
Sean, your jacket is a little Wu-Tang financial, if I don't say so myself. Oh, nice shirt, yeah.
By your bonds. But yeah, reading Rhaegar sneaking out from underneath. But yeah, my little maniacs, we got absolutely stomped, lost our first 6 games, all blowouts. And then we managed to find, and those were tournaments, so we managed to actually make it all the way to the championship. We lost today, but it was a lot of improvement. I'm proud of my little guys.
In case you didn't know, Coach Sean out there, training up the youth. So good job, Sean. Appreciate your positive role modelness. That's just pure goodness right there. And I was on a really bad youth football team. We lost all of our games. We did not have the turnaround cut. We just lost every game and built character. That was fun. Anyways, we're here to talk about what's that?
Didn't watch the right movies.
No, we did not. We did not. And so we are here to talk about sacking of Winterfell. This is not be the one where Bran's in the coming out and seeing the destruction. This is the one where Theon loses it to Ramsay, who he thinks is Reek. So this is the first appearance of Ramsay on page, really. I guess he was in an earlier chapter because he showed up as Reek, and he's been Grima worm-tonguing it up to Theon. And this is kind of the chapter where he turns the tables on Theon. So it is one of those escalating horror chapters, much like the build-up to the Red Wedding. You could just feel things going wrong. We're not rooting for Theon, but you could still get that sense of impending doom. So it is a spooky chapter. And me and Sean went through a bunch of them to try to figure out which one to read. So hopefully this will be a good one.
Definitely going to get some dark vibes on this one. But this is also a very good symbolic chapter. We'll try not to get too bogged down in it, but it's their very good opportunity.
I don't know why you would even say that, Sean.
Precedent.
Yeah, we'll try not to get bogged down in the symbolism, folks. You heard it here. We'll hold you to that.
Oh God, I just sound like I'm lying now.
Yeah, well, we'll probably touch on some Bolton stuff, and we will touch on some Greenseer stuff. Who knows what'll come up? But would you go ahead and start the reading while I cough a little bit more with the mute button on?
Sure. Maester Lewin came to him when the first scouts were seen outside the walls. "My lord prince," he said, "you must yield." Theon stared at the platter of oatcakes, honey, and blood sausage they'd brought him to break his fast. Another sleepless night had left his nerves raw, and the very sight of food sickened him. "There has been no reply from my uncle." "None," the maester said, "nor from your father on Pike." Send more birds.
Let me do the Maester.
Okay.
I like Maester Lewin, and I should also participate. Let me just say, I think overused fantasy trope, being like too upset to eat. I think George does it too much. It's part of. I mean, he describes food too much, so maybe it's just all the food has a lot of attention on it. But yeah, I guess that's what when George can't eat, that's when he knows he's really upset.
Yeah,
So
he's
that's
bringing up something he can't relate to.
maybe that's it.
No, I don't know. I relate. When I'm upset, I can't eat at all.
I eat because I'm upset. No, I don't. I've weighed the same thing for 25 years, but yeah, I was just saying.
Is that fat bastard you just were doing?
Was it? That was accidental.
I think so. I'm only happy because I eat.
Yeah, no, that was, yes, that was, you're right. Of course, he's ripping off like weight loss videos and things like yeah, okay. So it will not serve. By the time the birds reach,
Send them! Knocking the platter of food aside with a swipe of his arm, he pushed off the blankets and rose from Ned Stark's bed, naked and angry. Or do you want me dead? Is that it, Lewin? The truth now?
the small gray man was unafraid. My order serves.
Yes, but whom?
The realm and Winterfell. Theon, once I taught you sums and letters, history, and warcraft. And might I have taught you more had you wished to learn. I will not claim to bear you any great love, no, but I cannot hate you either. Even if I did, so long as you hold Winterfell, I am bound by oath to give you counsel. So now I counsel you to yield.
Theon stopped to scoop a puddled cloak off the floor, shook off the rushes, and draped it over his shoulders. A fire. I'll have a fire and clean garb. Where's Wex? I'll not go to my grave in dirty clothes.
You have no hope of holding here, the maester went on. If your lord father meant to send you aid, he would have done so by now. It is the neck that concerns him. The battle for the north will be fought amidst the ruins of Moat Galen.
That may be so, and so long as I hold Winterfell, Sir Roderick and Stark's land, Lords Bannerman cannot march south to take my uncle in the rear. I am not so innocent of warcraft as you think, old man. I have food enough to stand a year's siege, if need be.
That's a funny thought where, like, Theon's all like, oh, I know more about war than you think. Like, no, Lewin knows exactly what you've learned since the age of 9, literally. He's a very good idea of what you know about Warcraft. But
yeah, he's an arrogant fella. He's
like Theon hasn't been online reading, General Patton's war strategies. There's no internet there. I mean, I don't picture him in the Winterfell library like studying, the lives of 4 kings or whatever.
No, there's no one to smirk at.
I see him reading the book about the one. What's the bad book about the woman that was like it was a story of a woman who was like a sex worker, and it was like all from her point of view or something like that. There's some sort of banned book, like, of course, not Barth, but it's from the time of the Dance of the Dragons. It's like Karina Wilde or something.
Oh, was it one of the parents?
A Caution for Young Girls. That was it.
Was it Game and Pale Hair or whatever? Oh, A Caution for Young Girls.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like a warning not to, but it's very lurid and people read it just for the smut, essentially.
Yeah, misunderstanding a smut book because you want to misunderstand a smut
Corianne
book.
Wild, yes. That's the one that Theon is reading, not Lives of the 4 Kings or like Daeron the Young Dragon's Conquest of Dorne. Maybe a couple pages of that. It got a little dense though. We put it down, so. There will be no siege. Perhaps they will spend a day or two fashioning ladders and tying grapnels to the ends of ropes. But soon enough they will come over your walls in 100 places at once. You may be able to hold the keep for a time, but the castle will fall within the hour. You would do better to open your gates and ask for
mercy? I know what kind of mercy they have for me.
There is a way.
I am Ironborn. I have my own way. What choice have they left me? No, don't answer. I've heard enough of your counsel. Go and send those birds as I commanded, and tell Lauren I want to see him. And Wex as well. I'll have my mail scoured clean, and my garrison assembled in the yard.
For a moment, he thought the maester was going to defy him, but finally Lewin bowed stiffly. As you command. Dumbass.
They made a pitifully small assembly. The Iron Men were few, the yard large. The Northmen will be on us before nightfall. Sir Roderick Cassell and all the lords who have come to his call. I will not run from them. I took this castle and I mean to hold it, to live or die as Prince of Winterfell. But I will not command any man to die with me.
Sorry, hang on. Here we go.
If you leave now, before Sir Roderick's main force is upon us, there's still a chance you may win free. He unsheathed his longsword and drew a line in the dirt. Those who would stay and fight, step forward.
He probably did read this in a book somewhere. No one spoke. Yeah. The men stood in their mail and fur and boiled leather, as still as if they were made of stone. Ironborn, if you will. A few exchanged looks. Erzin shuffled his feet. Dick Harlaw hawked and spat. Finger of wind ruffled Endahar's long, fine hair. Theon felt as though he were drowning. Why am I surprised, he thought bleakly. His father had forsaken him, his uncles, his sister, even that wretched creature Reek. Why should his men prove any more loyal? There was nothing to say, nothing to do. He could only stand there beneath the great gray walls and the hard white sky, sword in hand, waiting.
Wex was the first to cross the line. 3 quick steps and he stood at Theon's side, slouching. Shamed by the boy, Black Lauren followed, all scowls. Who else? He demanded. Red Rolf came forward. Crom, Werlag, Timor and his brothers, Ulf the Ill, Herag Sheepstealer, 4 Harlaws and 2 Botleys. Kenneth the Whale was last, 17 in all. Erzin was among those who did not move, and Stig, and every man of the 10 that Asha had brought from Deepwood Mott. Go then! Run to my sister. She'll give you all a warm welcome, I've no doubt. Stig had the grace at least to look ashamed. The rest moved off without a word. Theon turned to the 17 who remained. Back to the walls. If the gods should spare us, I shall remember every man of you.
Do you want to keep doing Theon, or would you have more fun like doing the variety of other Ironborn that run along? I think we might have gotten this backwards.
I could hop around and do the randoms here.
It just occurs to me. I can do the like sort of strident, pissed off young male. I have that in me. But I know you with the variety, you'd probably do well doing like all the different Ironborns. I'm just going to do 1,000 versions of like a grumbly guy. Okay. So let's do that. Let's pull the switch. Hopefully that won't be too disorienting for y'all. And, okay.
We gave them a buffer. They're good. All right. Black Lauren stayed when the others had gone. The castle folk will turn on us as soon as the fight begins.
I know that. What would you have me do?
Put them out. Every one.
Theon shook his head. Is the noose ready?
It is. You mean to use it?
Do you know a better way?
Aye. I'll take my axe and stand on that drawbridge and let them come try me. 1 at a time, 2, 3. It makes no matter. None will pass the moat while I still draw breath.
I think George secretly is always thinking about the Black Knight from Monty Python. None shall pass. They've got no arms left. None shall pass.
I think he's constantly making fun of that with Gandalf's "You shall not pass."
Oh. Yeah, I guess those two things would both be in his mind. That's really funny. And yeah, Sean is Sean's YouTube channel, which you should go subscribe. I'm serious. If you're not subscribed, do it right now. It's in the description. Click his little hot link. He's the hero with 1,000 voices because he literally does all the voices. See, it's dual
Starting to run
purpose.
out.
Was that?
I'm up to like 931 now. I'm starting to run out of voices.
Well, it's like Goose. I count the words that he can speak, and he's up around like 50 different things he can say. But you're way ahead of him, Sean. That's good. You've got him. You're much smarter than he is. So
I know at least 60 words.
So yeah, hero with 1,000 voices. Give him a sub. If not, he does have many voices. That's why we did the switch. Many more fun Ironborn to come. He means to die, thought Theon. It is not victory he wants. It's an end worthy of a song. We'll use the noose.
As you say, Lorne replied, contempt in his eyes. Wex helped garb him for battle. Beneath his black surcoat and golden mantle was a shirt of well-oiled ringmail, and under that a layer of stiff boiled leather. Once armed and armored, Theon climbed the watchtower at the angle where the eastern and southern walls came together to have a look at his doom. The Northmen were spreading out to encircle the castle. It was hard to judge their numbers, 1,000 at least, perhaps twice that many, against 17. They'd brought catapults and scorpions. He saw no siege towers rumbling up the King's Road, but there was timber enough in the Wolfswood to build as many as were required.
So Greyways Tim and the rest of the chat is noticing that we can hear Ramsay's hounds in the background as he approaches Castle Winterfell.
Yeah, I ran them around so they'd be too tired to do that during the stream, but Rick he's barking with his tongue fully out.
Sometimes Rick gets a bee in his bonnet, as we know.
He does not like it. Oh, sorry.
Theon studied their banners through Maester Luwin's Mirish lens tube, which would be if Valyrian Steel's running out of swords to make. Like, can we get like a super steampunk Mirish? I mean, that'd be pretty cool. I'd pay for it. So, the Serwyn battle axe flapped bravely wherever he looked, and there were tall heart trees as well, and mermen from White Harbor. Less common were the sigils of Flint and Karstark. Here and there, you even saw the bull moose of the Hornwoods. Bull moose deserves as much respect as I always give the Irish elk, I think. Neither are animals you want to get in the way of. While I was looking for it, because I'm working on the Cold Hands video right now. I'm making progress, by the way. That is coming out next week. I dug up some wild elk and moose footage, and I found a couple of the moose in traffic. I saw one of a guy out in his yard in Alaska, and he goes out to his little firewood stack, and then the moose walks into the yard, and he looks at the moose and he dives into the shed and pulls the door shut. The moose is all menacing him. It's so big, dude.
They're scary. I saw one. My family went up to Yellowstone when I was 15 years old. And we saw one on the side of the road. And I had thought that they were just goofy looking deer, but they are 2 times the size of deer or more. They are just so gigantic. It's scary to be near them.
Yeah, they're taller than your car at the shoulder. They're terrifying. They're huge. And they're the most deadly animal in Canada. They kill more people than anything else. More than snakes, more than wolves. Those mooses will get you. So, yeah, bull moose, excellent sigil of the Hornwoods. So, the bull moose of the Hornwoods, what's going on there? Is there horned men living in the wood? Horned lords like Blackjack Bulwer, son of Garth the Green? Something like that?
Yeah, I think some sort of green men with horns. I would believe it. Yeah.
Was there a woman trapped in the wood who had to get bloody fingers like a weirwood tree? Lady Hornwood, I believe it was.
Some sort of pattern. I don't know. Who would put that kind of.
Who locked her in the tower? Was it an evil Azor Ahai Night King figure like Ramsay Snow? I believe it was.
Oh yeah.
Eyes of Ice.
So he's gonna dress in his all red armor, and just because it's spooky season, I wanted to kind of give a heads up that the way they describe his armor is exactly the way they've put together the armor of Dracula in Bram Stoker's Dracula. So if you look at Gary Oldman as Dracula, with his, red.
I came across that when I was making the Bolton secret video, where I've got my Bolton skin-changing flaying theory. Yeah, I came across the Gary Oldman picture. It's like, oh, that's where George got that from. So
Yeah, very, very sinister and fits very well with the Boltons.
and then the chat is on top of the tall heart trees because heart trees are very tall. So,
Well,
they've
no,
invaded the North, Sean, and all the trees are showing up to give them hell. The green men and the trees are here, and they're like, get out of our wood.
yeah, a little bit of whispering.
Our whispering wolfwood. That's right. You go. You get on out. And I've been yelling at a woodpecker lately. There's a woodpecker that's decided to try to make a nest under the eaves on the third floor of my house, right on the other side of this wall, in fact. He started not this morning, but yesterday morning. And it took me a minute to figure out what it was because it's this weird knocking. I thought somebody was cop knocking on my door at first. I was very upset at that. There's nobody at the door. And then, yeah. So now when he knows I'm a bird guy, exactly. But I'm not going to shoot him or anything, but I can't. It's too loud. I'd let him nest under there, but I can't deal with the.
No, it's brutal. And one of the things I found out in one of my first apartments was that it's not just woodpeckers that do that with the really loud pecking, like carving out a tree. There are a few different birds that do that, and it's all very loud.
We have like 14 different species of woodpecker in California, and this is the most common one. What do I yell at him? I yell, "Get out of here, you dang woodpecker!" That's what I yell. It works.
He tries
He
to
flies
hand him
away.
a letter to take. Yeah.
I'm just going to keep harassing him so that he doesn't feel comfortable enough to build a nest, and hopefully that'll work. That's about all I got. It's on the third floor. I'm not climbing on a ladder to put some mesh up there.
Well, you let me know if you want to bring a couple of dogs that a woodpecker won't like around.
No. No, I'm not going to do the Woody Woodpecker laugh. It's really obnoxious, and I don't remember exactly how it goes. I'm not practiced. All right, where are we? Oh, yes, that's right. We've got some trees and some hornwoods, but no Glovers. Asha saw to them. No Boltons from the Dreadfort. No Umbers. Come down from the shadow of the wall. Not that they were needed. Soon enough, the boy Clay Serwyn appeared before the gates, carrying a peace banner on a tall staff, to announce that Sir Roderick Cassell wished to parley with Theon Turncloak.
The name was bitter as bile. He had gone to Pike to lead his father's longships against Lannisport, he remembered. Oh, sorry, I should not have taken over yet.
I shall be out shortly, he shouted down. Alone.
Black Lauren disapproved. Only blood can wash out blood. Knights may keep their truces with other knights, but they are not so careful of their honor when dealing with those they deem outlaw.
Theon bristled. I'm the Prince of Winterfell and heir to the Iron Islands. Now go find the girl and do as I told you.
Black Lauren gave him a murderous look. Aye, Prince. He's turned against me.
He's turned against me too, Theon realized. Of late it seemed to him as if the very stones of Winterfell had turned against him. If I die friendless and abandoned. What choice did that leave him but to live? He rode to the gatehouse with his crown on his head. It's the ugliest crown anyone's ever seen, remember. A woman was drawing water from the well, and Gage the cook stood in the door of the kitchens. They hid their hatred behind sullen looks and faces blank as slate. Yet he could feel it all the same. Well, it's probably not really that hidden, is it? Go ahead.
When the drawbridge was lowered, a chill wind sighed across the moat. The touch of it made him shiver. It is the cold, nothing more, Theon told himself. A shiver, not a tremble. Even brave men shiver. Into the teeth of that wind he rode, under the portcullis, over the drawbridge. The outer gates swung open to let him pass. As he emerged beneath the walls, he could sense the boys watching from the empty sockets where their eyes had been. Sir Roderick waited in the market astride his dappled gelding. Beside him, the direwolf of Stark flapped from a staff borne by young Clay Kerwin.
So let's just stop and appreciate here. These Northmen are showing up to Winterfell. The Starks are gone. Theon's there. And Bran and Rickon's bodies are dangling like burnt and mutilated outside the walls. Like, they couldn't be any more pissed.
There is no way that Theon gets out of this without them killing him, except for the way that Maester Lewin wants him to do it, and there's no way.
Which is surrender and take the black, right?
Right.
Right. Yeah. Well, they'll come back to that. So Roderick waited in the market. Oh, go ahead. You read this.
They were alone in the square, though Theon could see archers on the roofs of surrounding houses, spearmen to his right, and to his left a line of mounted knights beneath the merman and trident of House Manderley. Every one of them wants me dead. Some were boys he'd drunk with, diced with, even wenched with, but that would not save him if he fell into their hands.
Sir Roderick, Theon reined to a halt. It grieves me that we must meet as foes.
My own grief is that I must wait a while to hang you. The old knight spat onto the muddy ground. Theon Turncloak.
I am a Greyjoy of Pike, Theon reminded him. The cloak my father swaddled me in bore a kraken, not a direwolf.
For 10 years you have been a ward of Stark.
Hostage and prisoner, I call it.
Then perhaps Lord Eddard should have kept you chained to a dungeon wall. Instead he raised you among his own sons, the sweet boys you have butchered, and to my undying shame I trained you in the arts of war. Would that I had thrust a sword through your belly, instead of placing one in your hand.
I came out to parley, not to suffer your insults. Say what you have to say, old man. What would you have of me?
2 things. Winterfell and your life. Command your men to open the gates and lay down their arms. Those who murdered no children shall be free to walk away. But you shall be held for King Rob's justice. May the gods take pity on you when he returns.
Robb will never look on Winterfell again. He will break himself on Moat Cailin, as every southern army has done for 10,000 years. We hold the north now, sir.
You hold 3 castles. And this one, I mean to take back, Turncloak.
Here are my terms. You have until evenfall to disperse. Those who swear fealty to Balon Greyjoy as their king, and to myself as Prince of Winterfell, will be confirmed in their rights and properties and suffer no harm. Those who defy us will be destroyed.
Young Kerwin was incredulous. Are you mad, Greyjoy? Sir Roderick shook his head. Only vain, lad. Theon has always had too lofty an opinion of himself, I fear. The old man jabbed a finger at him. Do not imagine that I need wait for Robb to fight his way up the neck to deal with the likes of you. I have near 2,000 men with me, and if the tales be true, you have no more than 50.
17, in truth. Theon made himself smile. I have something better than men. And he raised a fist over his head, the signal Black Lorne had been told to watch for.
The walls of Winterfell were behind him, but Sir Roderick faced them squarely and could not fail to see. Theon watched his face. When his chin quivered under those stiff white whiskers, he knew just what the old man was seeing. He is not surprised, he thought with sadness. But the fear is there. This is craven, Sir Roderick said. To use a child so. This is despicable.
Oh, I know. It's a dish I tasted myself, or have you forgotten? I was 10 when I was taken from my father's house to make certain he would raise no more rebellions.
It is not the same.
Theon's face was impassive. The new Cywar was not made of hempen rope, that's true enough. But I felt it all the same. And it chafed, Sir Roderick, it chafed me raw. So pathetic, dude. It's very hard to keep a straight face and say all this shit. He had never quite realized that until now, but as the words came spilling out, he saw the truth of them. As he was making pulling the bullshit out of his you-know-where, it kind of smelled good to him as he said it.
It's just bullshit stacked on bullshit. Like, he's in the other scene, he's got 17 people, and he's like, anybody who swears to Balon Greyjoy will not be harmed. Otherwise, we'll destroy you all. And it's like, there's 2,000 men out there. Like, you guys will literally not.
And no
have
one's
enough
coming.
strength in
No
your
one's. There's no
arms to kill that
reinforcements.
many people.
Sorry, Sean. I'm sorry. What'd you say?
I was saying, you literally don't have enough strength in your arms to kill that many people. You will literally die of exhaustion trying to kill that many people.
Yeah, they don't have enough prison guards to like keep the prisoners, and nobody's coming. Is what I was trying to say. Nobody's coming.
Yeah.
No harm was ever done to you,
No harm was ever done you.
and no harm will be done your Beth, so long as you.
Sir Roderick never gave him the chance to finish. Viper! The knight declared, his face red with rage beneath those white whiskers. I gave you the chance to save your men and die with some small shred of honor, Turncloak. I should have known that was too much to ask. Of a child killer. His hand went to the hilt of his sword. I ought cut you down here and now and put an end to your lies and deceits. By the gods, I should.
Theon did not fear a doddering old man, but those watching archers and that line of knights were a different matter. If the swords came out, his chances of getting back to the castle alive were small to none. Forswear your oath and murder me, and you will watch your little Beth strangle at the end of a rope.
Sir Roderick's knuckles had gone white, but after a moment he took his hand off the sword hilt. Truly, I have lived too long.
I will not disagree, sir. Will you accept my terms?
I have a duty to Lady Catelyn and House Stark.
And your own house? Beth is the last of your blood.
The old knight drew himself up straight. I offer myself in my daughter's place. Release her, and take me as your hostage. Surely the Castellan of Winterfell is worth more than a child.
Not to me. A valiant gesture, old man, but I am not that great a fool. Not to Lord Mandalier Lethal Tallhard either, I'd wager. Your sorry old skin is worth no more to them than any other man's. No, I'll keep the girl, and keep her safe, so long as you do as I've commanded you. Her life is in your hands.
Gods be good, Theon. How can you do this? You know I must attack. Have sworn.
If this host is still in arms before my gate when the sun sets, Beth will hang. Another hostage will follow her to the grave at the first light, and another at sunset. Every dawn and every dusk will mean a death until you are gone. I have no lack of hostages. He did not wait for a reply, but wheeled Smiler around and rode back toward the castle. He went slowly at first, but the thought of those archers at his back soon drove him to a canter. The small heads watched him come from their spikes, their tarred and flayed faces looming larger with every yard. Between them stood little Beth Castle, a castle. Right?
I don't know. I've always said Cassell just because of Sam Cassell.
Right, because we're thinking of Sam Cassell, of course. Yeah. What's the more English pronunciation of that? Does anybody in the chat know? It would be Cassell or Castle?
I think it would be Castle.
Okay. Cass-L? Like more like Castle without the T. Okay.
Right.
So Beth Castle. I don't know. Cassell sounds better to me now that I say it. Yeah, but me and Sean's a basketball coach. We're both into hoops. Like we can don't even try. We'll wreck the
Warriors
whole
fans,
stream.
we're not getting diverted.
Sam Cassell was a valuable third member on the Rockets championship teams. Okay. Okay, Beth, I'm gonna say Cassell because Castle's weird. No, bad. Okay, fine. Beth Castle, noosed and crying. So she's stood between the dead kids just to drive home the point. Theon, child killer. No, he seriously is. Like, I guess we should just stop and talk about how loathsome that. I mean, this is one of the hardest to read, and nobody's even dying right now, but like this is just so brutally awful.
Yeah, we kind of almost, it's kind of like Jamie, where we get a sort of redemption arc, partly because such horrible things are happening to Theon, where you kind of soften on him. But it's important to remember that he killed two completely innocent children. And I'm not sure I buy it, but there are a lot of people out there who are with the Miller's son theory, where those one or both might be his kids.
I think the eldest might be. Yeah, there's enough there to that theory to make you think it makes sense.
So, to be clear to anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about in the chat, Theon slept with the Miller's wife for years, whenever he felt like it, and so the Miller's kids, one or both, might be his children, and those are who he, hung and defaced their corpses in place of Bran and Rickon.
Because
So
the
it
Hooded
might
Man of
be,
Winterfell accuses him of being a kinslayer in A Dance with Dragons, and he's like, I'm not a kinslayer. And so it could be that he's saying because you were raised with the Starks, it's like killing your brother, but kinslaying really does mean kinslaying. So it's not a good explanation for why he'd be called kinslayer. And the thinking is that that person, my favorite theory for Hooded Man is that it's why can't I remember his name? Glover, Robert Glover. He's the guy with Wyman Manderley in White Harbor when Davos, when he sort of
secret
reveals the
agent
big,
man.
yeah, secret agent man. He's everywhere.
Yeah.
So he's somebody that could know about the truth of the Miller's daughter. Might know that those were Theon kids. Hard to say, but yeah, Black Ops Glover. That's him.
Yeah. The Black Glover, love it. Oh, you're no, sorry, it was still you. I was
Yeah. So let's see. Theon put his heel into Smiler and broke into a hard gallop. Smiler's hooves clattered on the drawbridge like drum beats. In the yard, he dismounted and handed the reins to Wex. It may stay them, he told Black Lorne. We'll know by sunset. Take the girl in till then and keep her somewhere safe. Under the layers of leather, steel, and wool, he was slick with sweat. I bet so. I need a cup of wine. A vat of wine would do even better. A fire had been laid in Ned Stark's bedchamber. Theon sat beside it and filled a cup with a heavy-bodied red from the castle vaults, a wine as sour as his mood. They will attack, he thought gloomily, staring at the flames. Sir Roderick loves his daughter, but he is still Castellan, and most of all, a knight. Had it been Theon with a noose around his neck and Lord Balin commanding the army without, the war horns would have already sounded the attack, he had no doubt. He should thank the gods that Sir Roderick was not ironborn. The men of the Greenlands were made of softer stuff, though he was not certain they would prove soft enough. Last of his line, though, man, that's so fucking brutal.
Yeah, I mean, the house is done anyway. Unfortunately, it died with Jory, really, but somebody could marry in, and you basically keep things going on through the female line. But yeah, this is dark, and Theon is just committing a string of abominable acts.
So, XGN, how do you say the English version? Cassel became Castel. I gotta think it's that French sound, the way I'm saying it. Castles? That doesn't sound right. Like hostels.
Yeah, because typically you're going to put the T somewhere where it's not going to be pronounced in that kind of situation in French. So yeah, that sounds. I am not fluent by any means, but I speak a little French, and Castel sounds very wrong to me in my mouth.
So let's see here. If the old man gave the command to storm the castle regardless, Winterfell would fall. Theon entertained no delusions on that count. His 17 might kill 3, 4, 5 times their own number, but in the end, they would be overwhelmed. Theon stared at the flames over the rim of his wine goblet, brooding on the injustice of it all. Unfair. I rode beside Robb Stark in the Whispering Wood, he muttered. He had been frightened that night, but not like this. It was one thing to go into battle surrounded by friends, and another to perish alone and despised. Mercy, he thought miserably. And this will be in his dream. Is that dream in this chapter? I bet it is, isn't it? Thank you very much, Ollie Reed. And there was another super chat real quick. I'll just give a shout out to. Sorry I'm late, sir. Welcome, Ian. Thanks. And Bastard of Parma, welcome to Squisher. Come on in, the water's nice. Place like this might be Squishers. You know what they say. When the wine brought no solace, Theon sent Wex to fetch his bow and took himself to the old inner ward. There he stood, loosing shaft after shaft at the archery butts, until his shoulders ached and his fingers were bloody. That's a good idea. Just wear yourself out for the big game. Pausing only long enough to pull the arrows from the targets for another round. I saved Bran's life with this bow, he reminded himself. Would that I could save my own. Women came to the well but did not linger. Whatever they saw on Theon's face sent them away quickly. Yeah, just somebody who's losing it. Go ahead.
Behind him, a broken tower stood, its summit as jagged as a crown where fire had collapsed the upper stories long ago. As the sun moved, the shadow of the tower moved as well, gradually lengthening, a black arm reaching out for Theon Greyjoy. I think we got to stop there and contrast that with the white sword that cuts across Old Town.
Okay. I'm with you.
So yeah, when they talk about the old tower in Old Town coming from, the
cut the city like a sword.
Right. So this is kind of the same, except this is a shadow tower, a black arm reaching out. And with the high tower, even though obviously a shadow is going to be dark, just the way that he describes it, he's giving pale shadow type description, which makes it sound a lot more like the others in the Kingsguard. Whereas this is sounding like, Stark wraiths, right?
Could be hard. I was trying to think about what it could mean. I'm not even sure what the Old Town one means. Like this, a shadow sword makes me think first of the shadow baby that killed Renly, because it uses that phrase shadow sword twice in that scene, and I think that's basically George talking about the true nature of Lightbringer, like not Dawn, but the other sword,
right?
Like the idea that there is this really dark nature to the sword, like Stormbringer or Mournblade,
Right.
Lusting for blood, possessing souls, things like that. And so I think that's loosely speaking, but the White Shadows also have shadow swords in a way. I mean, they're analogous to the Black Shadows, essentially. So, yeah, it's probably a sort of a commentary on all of it. What's happening here? This is the broken tower. It was struck by lightning, and now it's a black arm reaching out. It's by the time the sun touched the wall, he was in its grasp. So the sun is dying, and he's being grabbed by an arm of darkness. I mean, it's probably just a straightforward kind of a death symbolism here. If I hang the girl, the Northmen will attack at once, he thought as he loosed his shaft. If I do not hang her, they will know my threats are empty. He knocked another arrow to his bow. There is no way out, none. If you had 100 archers as good as yourself, you might have a chance to hold the castle.
When he turned, Maester Luwin was behind him.
Oh, I switched back. No, that's right. I'm doing Theon. Let's hear your far superior Maester Luwin voice. Go ahead.
I don't know about that. If you had 100 archers as good as yourself, you might have a chance to hold the castle.
When he turned, Maester Luwin was behind him. Go away. I've had enough of your counsel.
And life? Have you had enough of that, my Lord Prince?
And he raised the bow. One more word and I'll put this shaft through your heart.
You won't.
Theon's just getting called on his bluffs everywhere. Doesn't fool anybody. Theon bent the bow, drawing the gray goose feathers back to his cheek. Care to make a wager?
I am your last hope, Theon.
I have no hope, he thought. Yet he lowered the bow half an inch and said, I will not run.
I do not speak of running. Take the black.
The Night's Watch. Theon let the bow unbend slowly and pointed the arrow at the ground.
So Roderick has served House Stark all his life, and House Stark has always been a friend to the Watch. He will not deny you. Open your gates, lay down your arms, accept his terms, and he must let you take the black.
A brother of the Night's Watch. It meant no crown, no sons, no wife, but it meant life, and life with honor. Ned Stark's own brother had chosen the Watch, and Jon Snow as well. Okay, let me keep reading. I have black garb aplenty. Once I tear the krakens off. Even my horse is black. I could rise high in the Watch. Chief of Rangers, likely even Lord Commander. Likely, Sean. There wouldn't be anybody on the Night's Watch that might resent Theon, child killer, and, find their way into his bedchamber at night, slip a little knife between his ribs. That definitely wouldn't happen at all.
Or a certain wolf. Oh no, wow, I can't believe, Ghost just went crazy. That's my bad, guys.
Oh yeah, my friend John's up there. We always got along not very well, and then I killed two of his brothers. I'll likely be Lord Commander.
I mean, to be fair, there is a certain level of like highborn nepotism in the Watch. One, you have an advantage if you can read and you've been educated, etc.
So,
but also, yeah,
if he hadn't killed any Stark children, and if his personality was a little bit less abrasive, then yes, he would have a good chance of rising to first ranger. Perhaps he's a very good archer. He's good on a horse, sure, but
right. Well, and it's funny because Cotter Pike he's a bastard Ironborn,
sure,
and he's one of the people in the election. So it is a real possibility. Theon's even better born, but it's he's burned some bridges here.
He spurned the black and got the white. Yeah, he turned white, skin, hair, all that stuff. He turned gray actually, gray like a Stark or a Gray King. That's it for a different day. We're not doing that today, but yeah. He's just, it only takes him like 3 sentences to start daydreaming again. He's in the absolute worst situation, but he's still not humbled. And this is why he's got to get Reeked, I guess, or why it sort of makes sense as a story beat for him to be first. He's not really humbled yet. He's still like, oh yeah, I'll likely be Lord Commander. Okay, I could have a life with honor. Like, dude, you've already shredded your honor. Everybody in the North, if they were asked who's the one person that has the least honor, it'd be like Theon Greyjoy.
Yeah, every scenario in his head plays out with him being the most awesome person imaginable, and everyone clapped.
Yeah, everyone draws different meaning out of the comet, but he's one of the people that looks at it as like, it's mine. It's my comet. It's for me.
That's like a narcissism test. It's the easiest narcissism test.
Yeah, I haven't made a big deal about, I3 Atlas, even though it is, coming here right as my videos are doing better on my channel. Is that a coincidence? I don't think so, but I don't make a big deal out of that. So, I mean, I made that a shy video, and Atlas was already in the news, but the cult really did start right around the time I made my shy video. So are those things related? I'm, Space Demon. Hashtag Space Demon. I haven't said anything about I3. I've been chill about it. That's mysterious comet. No one knows what it is, where it came from.
Yeah, it's the Cotton Eye Joe of comets.
It's probably not but like Storm's End, it is also not a spaceship. I feel safe to say.
Sorry, Preston.
Sorry, and also, No, there's really a comet out there somewhere. If you're confused, look it up. It's pretty cool. You can look up some YouTube videos on it. I recommend like a scientific one, not one that's like, is it a spaceship? But like, you know, like Astrum or something. Yeah, that's it's a really interesting. It's an interstellar comet. It's not from the Oort cloud. It came from God knows where. It might be older than the solar system, and it is very strange. It behaves strangely, strange enough for people to wonder if it's actually alien technology, but it's not. So, because we've got pictures of it and stuff now, we know that it's not. Unless I don't know. I shouldn't say that. Maybe the spaceship's disguised as a comet.
Nobody would be looking for that.
It's just as likely to be R'hllor.
That is how Superman got here.
True enough. Uh, one's called Lemon, one's called Star. What are you talking about? Well, Atlas is the third. There was one that just came by a couple years ago too. But let's get this back on track. The point is, when R'hllor gets here, you want to get in line and praise his name. That's the safe path to go. So
Yeah, it's like the Westeros rapture. This is where you want to be when Roar comes back.
I'll tell you, we need R'hllor right now. That's what we need. We need a cleansing fire. Okay.
Y'all
Yeah.
need Roar.
Uamuamua was the last one. In fact, I use pictures of Uamuamua a lot when I show comets. There's a really nice artist concept. It's that long wedge one. I use that one a lot. So, he's daydreaming here. I could command. Let's see. If I served at Eastwatch, I could command my own ship, and there's fine hunting beyond the wall. As for women, what wildling woman wouldn't want a prince in her bed? A slow smile crept across his face. A black cloak can't be turned. I'd be as good as any man.
Prince Theon! The sudden shout scattered his daydream. Crom was loping across the ward. The Northmen!
He felt a sudden sick sense of dread. Is it the attack?
Maester Lewin clutched his arm. There's still time. Raise a peace banner. They're fighting, Crom said urgently. More men came up, hundreds of them. And at first they made to join the others, but now they've fallen on them.
Is it Asha? Had she come to save him after all?
But Crom gave a shake of his head. No, these are Northmen, I tell you, with a bloody man on their banner.
The flayed men of the Dreadfort. Reek had belonged to the Bastard of Bolton before his capture, Theon recalled. It was hard to believe that a vile creature like him could sway the Boltons to change their allegiance, but nothing else made sense. I'll see this for myself, Theon said. Maester Lewin trailed after him. By the time they reached the battlements, dead men and dying horses were strewn about the market square. Strewn about the cave. Look at the bones. He saw no battle lines, only a swirling chaos of banners and blades. Shouts and screams rang through the cold autumn air. Sir Roderick seemed to have the numbers, but the Dreadfort men were better led and had taken the others unawares. Right, because they did something dishonorable. They rolled up. They meant to join them, and then they turned on them. Right, it's standard Ramsay stuff. Theon watched them charge and wheel and charge again, chopping the larger force to bloody pieces every time they tried to form up between the houses. He could hear the crash of iron axe heads on oaken shields over the terrified trumpeting of a maned horse. The inn was burning, he saw.
Black Lorn appeared beside him and stood silently for a time. The sun was low in the west, painting the fields and houses all a glowing red. A thin, wavering cry of pain drifted over the walls, and a war horn sounded off beyond the burning houses. Theon watched a wounded man drag himself painfully across the ground, smearing his life's blood in the dirt as he struggled to reach the well that stood at the center of the market square. He died before he got there. He wore a leather jerkin and conical half-helm, but no badge to tell which side he'd fought on.
I feel like that's George's bread and butter is like that paragraph. It's like, George, Give us the description of a man dying in battle, and it's like he dragged himself painfully across the ground, smearing his life's blood in the dirt as he struggled to reach the well. He died before he got there. No badge to say which side he had fought on. Just
Yeah. Just showing
captures.
that it's kind of irrelevant which side he fought on, and what were they fighting for? What did they gain? So at the end of this guy is just dying in pain. Another thing that happens when you're dying in pain, you're bleeding a lot, you get impossibly thirsty, which is what's going on here. So he's dragging himself towards the well through an outrageous amount of pain because it's kind of the one thing you can focus on.
Oh, I get. I didn't even think that. Yeah. Interesting. So, yeah, it's just that whole. I mean, he goes on to write A Feast for Crows to drive the point home. But, yeah, it's at the end of the day, exactly. It doesn't matter what uniform he was wearing. He's just a young man with his guts hanging out at this point. So, yeah, that's what Septon Maribald is talking about. The broken man who sees his friend's guts spill out over and over again and just like then breaks. So, oh, Feast for Crows. The crows came in the blue dusk with the evening stars. The Dothraki believe the stars are the spirits of the valiant dead, Theon said. Maester Luwin had told him that a long time ago, and Theon liked to say it at parties to make himself sound clever. Oh, I added that. Sorry.
Dothraki?
The horse lords across the narrow sea.
Oh, them.
Black Lorne frowned through his beard.
Savages believe all manner of foolish things.
As the night grew darker and the smoke spread, it was harder to make out what was happening below. But the din of steel gradually diminished to nothing, and the shouts and war horns gave way to moans and piteous wailing. Finally, a column of mounted men rode out of the drifting smoke. At their head was a knight in dark armor. Like a knight in dark armor. His rounded helm gleamed a sullen red, and a pale pink cloak streamed from his shoulders. Outside the main gate he reined up, and one of his men shouted for the castle to open.
Are you friend or foe?
Black Lorne bellowed down.
Would a foe bring such fine gifts? Rendhelm waved a hand, and 3 corpses were dumped in front of the gates. A torch waved above their bodies, so the defenders on the walls might see the faces of the dead.
The old Castellan,
said Black Lorne.
With Leopold Talhart and Clay Kerwin. The boy lord had taken an arrow in the eye, and Sir Roderick had lost his left arm at the elbow. Maester Luwin gave a wordless cry of dismay, turned away from the battlements, and fell to his knees sick. Poor Luwin. Rough ride for poor Luwin. All right, should have been a maester. That's what you get for participating in the conspiracy. So, I always liked Luwin. I mean, he's got the Valyrian steel link, so I feel like he's one of the good ones. Marwyn probably liked the cut of his jib, but actually, in fact, they must have taught. If he got that Valyrian link, Marwyn is the archmaester that would have given it to him and tested him. Interesting. Maybe that means maybe Archmaester Marwyn will mention Maester Luwin at some point in the future of the story. We'll be like, oh, Maester Luwin. I remember him.
Oh, that'll be a little bit sad.
Indeed.
Should I take over Ramsay here? Since they're going to be talking to each other.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sure. Let's do that.
the great pig Manderley was too craven to leave White Harbor, or we would have brought him as well,
shouted Redhelm.
I am saved, Theon thought. So why did he feel so empty? This was victory, sweet victory, the deliverance he had prayed for. He glanced at Maester Luwin. To think how close I came to yielding and taking the black. Open the gates for our friends. Perhaps tonight Theon would sleep without fear of what his dreams might bring. Perhaps, and perhaps not. The Dreadfort men made their way across the moat and through the inner gates. Theon descended with Black Lorne and Maester Luwin to meet them in the yard. Pale red pennons trailed from the ends of a few lances, but many more carried battle axes and great swords and shields hacked half to splinters. How many men did you lose? Theon asked Redhelm as he dismounted.
20 or 30.
The torchlight glittered off the chipped enamel of his visor. His helm and gorget were wrought in the shape of a man's face and shoulders, skinless and bloody, mouth open in a silent howl of anguish.
Sir Roderick had you 5-1.
Aye, but he thought us friends. A common mistake. When the old fool gave me his hand, I took half his arm instead. Then I let him see my face.
The man put both hands to his helm and lifted it off his head, holding it in the crook of his arm.
Reek, Theon said, disquieted. How did a serving man get such fine armor? He's so slow.
The man laughed.
The wretch is dead.
He stepped closer.
The girl's fault. If she had not run so far, his horse would not have lamed, and we might have been able to flee. I gave him mine when I saw the riders from the ridge. I was done with her by then, and he liked to take his turn while they were still warm. I had to pull him off her and shove my clothes into his hands. Calfskin boots and velvet doublet, silver chased sword belt, even my sable cloak. Ride for the Dreadfort, I told him. Bring all the help you can. Take my horse, he's swifter. And here, wear the ring my father gave me, so they'll know you came from me. He'd learned better than to question me. By the time they put that arrow through his back, I'd smeared myself with the girl's filth and dressed in his rags. They might have hanged me anyway, but it was the only chance I saw.
He rubbed the back of his hand across his mouth.
And now, my sweet prince, there was a woman promised me if I brought 200 men. Well, I brought 3 times as many, and no green boys nor field hands neither, but my father's own garrison.
Theon had given his word. This was not the time to flinch. Pay him his pound of flesh and deal with him later. Hereg, he said, go to the kennels and bring Paula out for...
Ramsay.
There was a smile on his plump lips, but none in those pale, pale eyes.
Snow, my wife called me before she ate her fingers, but I say Bolton.
His smile curdled.
So you'd offer me a kennel girl for my good service? Is that the way of it?
There was a tone in his voice Theon did not like, no more than he liked the insolent way the Dreadfort men were looking at him. She was what was promised.
She smells of dog shit. I've had enough of bad smells, as it happens. I think I'll have your bed warmer instead. What'd you call her? Kira?
Are you mad? Theon said angrily. I'll have you...
The bastard's backhand caught him square, and his cheekbone shattered with a sickening crunch beneath the lobstered steel. The world vanished in a red roar of pain.
Wow, so he hit him like really friggin' hard.
Yeah.
Sometime later, Theon found himself on the ground. He rolled onto his stomach and swallowed a mouthful of blood. Close the gates, he tried to shout, but it was too late. The Dreadfort men had cut down Red Rolf and Kenned, and more were pouring through, a river of mail and sharp swords. There was a ringing in his ears and horror all around him. Black Lauren had his sword out, but they were already 4 of them pressing in on him. He saw Ulf go down with a crossbow bolt through the belly as he ran for the great hall. Maester Lewin was trying to reach him when a knight on a warhorse planted a spear between his shoulders, then swung back to ride over him. Another man whipped a torch round and round his head, and then lofted it towards the thatched roof of the stables.
Save me the phrase,
the bastard was shouting as the flames roared upward.
And burn the rest. Burn it. Burn it all.
The last thing Theon Greyjoy saw was Smiler, kicking free of the burned stables with his mane ablaze, screaming, rearing. That chapter really was so intense that we could barely get distracted by symbolism. Like, that's how intense it was.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're gonna go back now and look at that kind of stuff, but like, yeah, that's just you kind of want to just get through it. You don't want to focus on any of that horror too deeply. That's some Halloween stuff.
Because he just like turned our stomach with Theon. How despicable Theon is. What a terrible, dishonorable person is. Then he's like, but let me show you somebody that's much worse. And he pulls Ramsay Bolton out of his pocket with this story about how him and the old Reek basically chased down and killed someone. Ramsay raped her and killed her. And then Reek took a turn after she was dead, but while she was still warm. So that was the scene when they were getting ridden down by, I guess, the men trying to avenge Lady Hornwood, right?
Right.
And so we switched places. He dressed up Reek as him and pretended to be Reek. And then what happened from there?
Well, real quick, one of the people who was with him to come arrest him and bring him back to Winterfell was Roderick Cassell. So that's why he's talking about, and that I cut his hand off or his arm off at the elbow and then let him see my face. It was so that he would know who it was.
Right. Yeah. Right. So what happened? But when Ramsay dressed up as Reek, how did he get out of that and get free? How did that work? What happened?
I think one of the things that they did was they wanted to question Reek about what had happened with Lady Hornwood because she was dead by then.
Uh-huh.
So, and they weren't able to question the real Reek, and they weren't able to question Ramsay because they had killed him when he tried to escape.
And so how did he, let's see, I'm going to the wiki here and to his history. Let's see.
But yeah, like you said, they make Theon it really shows how awful he is. And not only that, but unsympathetic as he has these delusions of grandeur while he's being an awful person. And it's the same thing we saw with Jaime, where we see Jaime do despicable things. We know about even more despicable things that he's done. And then all of a sudden he gets softened because he's hanging out with Vargo Hoat.
Right. It's like, oh no, let me show you a real monster. So he doesn't attend the harvest feast. Instead, he abducts the widowed Lady Hornwood, who he calls his wife, but he just abducted her. While she returns to her own lands from the feast, Donella is forced to marry him at sword point before a septon and a heart tree, and he also forces her to sign a document proclaiming him her heir. Manderley responds to his cousin's capture by occupying Hornwood, and fighting in the Hornwood breaks out between Manderleys and Boltons. Sir Roderick Cassell, Castellan of Winterfell, rides east to resolve the feud. Ramsay continues his depredations on Hornwood lands, such as raping and killing a northern girl. That's the one we just talked about. Ramsay spots Roderick's party in the distance while Reek rapes the body. So he switches clothes with Reek. Reek, disguised as Ramsay, is killed as an arrow by the back, while Ramsay, disguised as Reek, is captured by Roderick's men. Roderick yearns to put Ramsay, disguised as Reek, to death, but he needs him as a witness to many of Ramsay's crimes, and instead imprisons him in Winterfell's dungeon.
Right.
Oh, and that's where Theon found him.
Right. And
Theon
so in
set
this
him
is
loose.
actually, there are a couple extra layers of horror to this, which are really sad. Because one, we saw Lady Hornwood. We met her. And we had both of the Umber uncles. They were both interested in trying to marry her, and they were pretty crude about it.
Yeah.
And Wyman Manderley was also talking about arranging a marriage between her and one of his sons, because she was actually a cousin or something of his. It's like, she was a Manderley before. Maybe she wants to be a Manderley again. And
yeah, that's romantic talk in Westeros.
Yeah, unfortunately. But I mean, there were designs on this woman because she didn't have an heir. So, whoever marries her, gets the Hornwood lands. And she was interested in Roderick Cassell. So he was interested
that's
too,
right.
but he wouldn't allow the marriage to happen. He was like, you know what, my house is basically dead. That doesn't help solve her problem. There is no and I'm below her station. That would be dishonoring her. Blah blah blah. So he was very chivalrous about it. He was very good about it, but he cared about her. And then all this happened. So all of this has been just blow after blow for Roderick Cassell. Jory Cassell dies. They bring his daughter up on the walls. This woman that he's very interested in, that he passed on to do the honorable thing. Horrible stuff happened to her afterwards that would not have happened if he had chosen to marry her. It's all very sad.
Yeah, you did a great job of capturing the emotion of his speech there. So good job, Sean. Let's give him a round of applause here. I really felt that. You pulled me into the chapter with those speeches. I mean, you really, yeah. Thanks for drawing out that extra background, and it is right here in the story. But yeah, that's some brutal roads not taken that he's thinking about as all this tragedy is going down, and it's all because he's honorable and Theon is dishonorable, and like Theon has just broken the code in so many ways, and so is Ramsay. And so these two people, they're visiting so much horror on so many people in the North. And they're both going to get their comeuppance. Obviously, Theon has, and Ramsay's going to get his once Johnny Boy gets his hands on him or somebody. We'll see. Just to finish with this story here. Lady Hornwood is found starved to death in her tower. And what happens to Beth Cassell?
No, that I actually don't know. But what happened to a lot of the people in Winterfell? There was nobody there when Bran and them came out of the crypt, and then they made their escape. Everybody's gone. So what happened to a lot of them is that they were just taken to the Dreadfort.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's what it says too.
So I don't know if Beth was among them, but a lot of people were taken to the Dreadfort, and we don't actually know who.
She's taking care of Old Nan at the Dreadfort. She's looking out for Old Nan, who is still alive.
Well, Old Nan's going to outlive us all.
Oh, and Arya goes by the name Blind Beth in Bravos, potentially because she knew Beth Cassell. Or Castle.
All of Arya's names are just so important. She's got Blind Beth, that's one, but she also goes by Old Nan, who's, close with Beth Cassell, obviously. But yeah, all of her names are so good.
Can we get an uplifting interlude? Well, we finished this chapter pretty early. We've still got some time. So yeah. I was thinking some people in the chat were asking for some open Q&A, and I haven't done one in a long time. So whenever we're done with our thoughts on this chapter, we can definitely we want a music break. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do a music break, and then we'll come back and do some open Q&A. We can talk about Night of the Seven Kingdoms or whatever. Yeah, I won't just end the stream after that. It's pretty... Thanks for coming. Everything sucks. George Martin is a dark fellow, and why do we read these books? All right.
We traumatized you, and now we're leaving. It's just like Game of Thrones never stopped airing.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, yeah, we'll hit the music. I'll be right back. And we're back. So, what's going on symbolically in this chapter? We saw a bunch of tree warriors outside of Winterfell, and they got murdered by Ramsay Bolton. We got the cut off hand. I think that's symbolic of a broken pact. You could almost say.
Yes. Well, and I think that kind of goes in with the, broken arm of Dorne. So like when you see that, it's often not only combined with that whole broken pact, like the pact of ice and fire, but it's also, we see it symbolically, we see it with lightning, kind of the wrath of nature. And it's kind of hard to aim, right? Like the chaotic wrath of nature when it's angry, it's kind of like unleashing the others. Yes, you might destroy your enemies, but you might destroy everybody. So it's dangerous. And this is kind of what's happened, is that Theon unleashed Ramsay thinking he would destroy his enemies, but really he's destroyed his enemies, and then he destroyed Theon, and he kept him as a slave. And that's a big thing that's happening here with Theon becoming Reek. It's a lot like being skin changed by who he thought was Reek. So it's like Reek stole his body. You're muted.
It seems like multiple ways of George talking about the invasion of the Weirwood Net. If you think about Varamir's Sixskins, he's doing Nissa Nissa stuff, but he's also clearly doing all this Weirwood stigmata going into the Weird Net. And then like he's both stealing someone's body symbolically with Reek, and then he's also like taking over the trees, killing the trees, all the tree warriors, betraying them, and then he's burning Winterfell, which Winterfell represents. Could be stone tree, could be the heart of winter, depends on how George is using it, but pretty similar idea. It's kind of like Night King going on this progression of going through these trees that he's invading and kind of ending up in the heart of winter, I feel like.
Well, and one thing that we see, Theon has a lot of, icy moon symbolism. And then we see Ramsay just deck him in the face. Ramsay, who has this red lobstered glove, so it's the red comet, right? Hitting the face of the moon. And he breaks his jaw. He's all messed up. He falls on the ground like, the moon meteors falling to earth. And, when that happens, he's looking over at a bridge, and a bunch of Dreadfortmen are invading Winterfell.
The Ravens and the Stars came out right before that too.
Right. So yeah, it's like the invasion of the Weirwood Net. They're crossing, an oak and iron bridge here. And it's that's all very brutal. It's also very analogous to the Red Wedding, which was also a Bolton backed thing.
Right.
So
Yep. And I was thinking about the burning horse. It's another good meteor symbol in general, but I guess you could think about Yggdrasil and the burning Weirwood Net. Smiler, a horse named Smiler, gives you the Weirwood smile. So,
yeah, well, and a burning horse is also going to double as dragon symbolism.
Yep. Shout out to House Bracken, which is all about Weirwood Net poisoning as well. Yeah.
Right. Well, and our most famous member of House Bracken isn't a member of House Bracken. It's Bittersteel, whose personal sigil looks a lot like that burning horse, but it's a dragon.
Right. So that's what we know about House Bracken is they poisoned the Weirwood at Raventree Hall, and Bittersteel's a fire horse. That's right. So yeah, that's mostly what's going on. But yes, chat, we will go. It's up to you guys now. So if you feed me some good discussion questions, feed us rather, we will kick them around and discuss them. Is Bittersteel still alive somewhere? No, he's dead.
Yeah, they have his skull. The Golden Company, they have his skull. It's been gilded.
That's right. So he wasn't ever taken captive, but you're writing a song similar to Reigns of Castamere about Winterfell falling to the Dreadfort. Oh, that sounds really sad. Little Miss Darkstar. Horse named Smiler, ridden by a smiling knight. Yeah, Theon is a smiling knight, no doubt. And dishonorable, like the real smiling knight.
And that's kind of interesting bringing in that smiling knight, especially because, we see this Jaime being so analogous to Theon, complete with cockiness and kind of his irreverent attitude. But we see Jaime talking about the smiling knight. He's a mixture of insanity and chivalry, and he's kind of misguided, but somewhat fighting for the people, but a problem. And so, like, he talks about how he ended up being the smiling knight rather than Arthur Dane. And that's kind of what's going on with Theon here, as you say. And that's compounded by the fact that as he's doing all of these things, he's looking at all these items like, with this bow, I saved Bran's life. And that is a kind, chivalrous thing. Bran was like his brother. And then he's looking back at all these other, I fought with Robb in the Whispering Wood, like blah, blah, blah. So it's, he's kind of contrasting the good things that he's done when he was actually accepted as part of the North and part of the family, with what happened after he joined his own family. He's become a disgrace to everyone.
So I've got a few good questions popping up here. Is Shara still alive? Well, she might be Quaithe. So check out our Who is Quaithe stream. That's pretty recent in the live stream tab. Is Bittersteel both the brother he loved or brother he hated? No, we think that the brother he loved would be Daemon, and Tim thinks that as well. Nobody likes the bracket. Oh, Greyways Tim already set that straight. Okay. Do you see Leo Tyrell becoming a more sympathetic character due to his apparent place in Marwyn's inner circle? No, they showed us that he's a bad seed, so he's probably going to do something bad. That'd be my guess. Just a guess, Morris.
It fits with the motif because Leo, obviously, you look at the zodiac, Leo is the lion. So it's a golden king symbol. And all of these golden kings like Tywin, like Jaime, they are not kittens. They are not sweethearts. They do bad things. Bad things happen.
Yeah, he seems like a pretty bad one to me.
Yeah.
And no, we don't do predictions on Winds of Winter anymore. There's no point.
It just hurts us.
One of the images Dany sees in the House of the Undying is a warrior with a fiery horse shield by a burning city. Yeah, that would be Rhaego, obviously. But same motif. We see the burning horse in Drogo's pyre as well. It's generally a burning weirwood net symbol because Yggdrasil being Odin's horse. Like, George does a lot of weirwood horse symbolism. A lot.
Right.
We could do a lore summit on it, but it would bore you guys. Why was Old Nan's grandchild called Walder? Did her children fraternize with Freys? Different times, Deer Pike's sister. Long time ago. It could be a family name. Hard to say. Hard to say.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of just it's George has his own versions of names from our world. So Walder is obviously a lot like Walter, and so it's probably just a common name in Westeros. But it is always very funny from a symbolism perspective when we have Bran riding Hodor, who is really Walder, and Big and Little Walder are acting like jerks on the side, just all in the same little scene.
Yeah, and of course, me and Tim did a great breakdown of that scene, which seems to foreshadow Rickon taking House Frey and becoming Lord of the Crossing and some other stuff. So check that stream out as well. Okay, we did that. Yep, shout out, thanks for everyone watching my Aerion Brightflame video. I also did a Dragon Slayers Legends video that some people missed just this past Thursday, so check that out if you need something to watch after the stream. I went through all the Dragon Slayer legends and tied them together with a theory. Any thoughts on Jon becoming a werewolf instead of going into Ghost? Ghost is going into him. Yeah, that is what's going to happen. Well, he is going to go into Ghost first, but we know that once Second Life begins, the skin changer begins to merge with the animal. and gradually subsumes to the animal spirit. So if they wait more than a few days in order to get Jon's spirit out of the wolf, it's going to be a merged Jon wolf spirit. And I do think both of them are going back into Jon. But I'm increasingly coming to think that Ghost is going to be whited too, and that the Jon Ghost spirit will just control both of them at the same time. It's going to be some weird thing.
Well, in whatever the case, Jon's going to come back more wolfish is the point. And that's something that we've clocked. That's not a symbolic prediction. We've seen actual evidence of this kind of stuff, largely with Varamir taking Orell's eagle, and him. Orell is still in there, and he's not as coherent as he used to be because the Orell had been dead a while, but he communicates his hate to Jon through to Varamir, and Varamir feels it. So that's one way. If you want to look at a more symbolic perspective, it's something you clocked a long time ago, Dave. Is that Drogo's pyre is basically a tryout for Jon's warg resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
So like strength of the horse go into the rider go into the horse. So it works both ways, right? So there is a reason that they did the ceremony that way. Whether you're blurring narrative with symbolic, either way, the point is that this is an exchange both ways.
Yes, yeah. We're gonna create a merged. It's gonna be some kind of wolf man. Werewolf isn't the right word because he's not gonna turn into a wolf at night or whatever, but like he's turning into a wolf man as the long night falls. So close enough.
It's a werewolf if you spell it Weir.
Werewolf. Yeah, well, he's got a werewolf, right? That's the whole point. So, yeah, I've got after Cold Hands, I'm putting out a Melisandre's Fate video that's going to go into detail about everything that we just talked about. I've taken this whole theory a little further as far as Jon's resurrection, how it's going to work, what Mel's going to do, what's going to come after. So look out for that one. Three brother theory. Are you talking about the three Garths on the wall and three Baratheons? What are you talking about, Tiresias? Give me a question. Phrase your cryptic comment in the form of a question, please.
Give us I like the Ray Blackfire here. What do you see for Theon's future? I think he's going to have a somewhat similar arc to Jaime. I think he's going to try for some sort of redemption. The thing is, like, we talk about Jaime as a redemption arc. It's not really a redemption arc because a lot of his crimes aren't redeemable. You're not redeemable if you push a kid out of a tower to kill him.
Right.
So when we talk about redemption arc, the point is that it's never too late to start doing good.
Yeah, atonement or just making different choices.
Right. So I think that's something that Theon will do. He'll get an opportunity to be better. Redemption is too strong a word, but I do think that Theon will have an opportunity to do something selfless, and he'll take it.
So Morris Code Food says Lazy Leo is described as a villain in George's drafts, plus he was originally going to kill Rosie. Okay, so my instinct is right. He's a bad one. Keep an eye on him. Yeah. So Sam is now hanging out with Jake and Hagar, disguised as Pate, and Leo Tyrell. Yeah. Well, Leo Tyrell will try to be like, yeah, Euron's cool. I'm down with Euron. I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll think about Old Town foreshadowing a different day. Yeah, but he's a bad one. Okay. I just jumped ahead. Look at all these questions coming in. I got all right. Okay. Do we think Cold Hands is a past Brandon Stark? Per his Your Monster Brandon Stark line, could be interpreted to him as introducing his name as well as his alliance to Curtin Brand. Yeah, so Erica, I'm going to talk about that in the video. It's a distinct possibility that he is also a Brandon Stark. And that could be true whether Cold Hands is the last hero, the Night's King, or just some other Stark. He could be Brandon in any of those circumstances. What do you think?
I think he's someone. I don't think he's just some nameless member of the Night's Watch. Mm-hmm. I think he is someone. I think that's important. And I think the fact that he is somebody where it matters who he used to be, I think that's a sharp contrast that we see in Bran's chapters, because when he sees the Children of the Forest, their individual identities aren't that important. And so he identifies them with Arya, and he says no one has hair like that. He's specifically calling them out to like faceless men. But when he's talking about Cold Hands, he's trying to figure out, is he a green man? He was riding an elk, like blah, blah, blah. Did he have antlers? So I think he is somebody. He is an undead skin changer and probably someone important. I know, Dave, you talked about stuff about him maybe being like the Night's King or Brandon Stark or Brandon the Bloody Blade, some of those things. I'm not pretending to know who, but I think his identity is presented as important.
I think it makes the most sense for him to either be the last hero or one of the last heroes group,
Right.
personally. But he could even be Night's King if Night's King isn't as evil as we think. I mean, that could make sense too. More of an atonement thing that he's doing. But I think he's like a pretty straightforward, like the fact that he was ice whited. I think the story that's being presented, and I'll talk about this in the video, but it just looks like the last hero was being chased by the others when all his friends died. So his friends would have been ice whited. And the last hero himself may have died, and he would have been ice whited if so, too. So then you come the children helping. Well, they reversing the ice white process. Like that happened with Cold Hands, it would seem. So it seems like the children rescued the last hero's companions, reversed the ice white process, and made a bunch of Cold Hands. And so I think that's probably who Cold Hands is.
Well, I think when we look at the Long Night, I think we want to look at two different events, because you look at, the people who helped everyone survive during the Long Night, and then you look at the people who won the War for the Dawn. Like, it's entirely possible that a hero becomes a villain. So they do some heroic acts, and then they do some villainous acts. And that's something that we just saw in our chapter. We're talking about Theon's heroic acts, fighting beside Robb in the Whispering Wood, saving Bran, blah, blah, blah. Now he's a villain. Now that, the Long Night's over, he's a villain in the War for the Dawn. So one or more of these characters that we're talking about, he could be both, is the point. He's a different guy once he's been ice whited, right? So it's and he will be remembered very differently by history. So I think his identity is important, is the main thing.
So we will see. Like I said, I got a 50-minute plus Cold Hands video coming. So Steerpike's sister, I think, has put the capstone on the wall door, Hodor holding the door in the wall. She says his mind is going to get frayed.
Hey,
he's got the same name as a phrase. No, it makes sense.
And you can only be brave when you're afraid.
That's true. Oh man, that's true also. Okay. Let's see here. I can't address your theory, Jeff. I'm sorry. I can't do that today. Patton 6421 is talking about the Aerion Targaryen ACOK potential parallel, because we've been talking about the demon gods. I mean, Aerion tries to turn himself into a demon god. He thinks he's a dragon person. He drinks the wildfire. There's some loose parallels you could draw. And of course, also, depending on how you say Aryon's name, it sounds like the word Aryan, like Aryan, which I always have to explain this, is a word that the Chancellor of Germany in the 1940s, let's say, misused. Of course, it should only apply to the Indo-Aryan peoples that migrated into India and Iran like 4,000 years ago. It is not a term that describes all white people or European people or anything like that. However, it's been misused by racists to mean that. And so George definitely seems to be doing a commentary on that when he made the Valerians, who are race supremacists and who run death camps and human experimentation camps and things like that. Okay? So when we talk about Aerion Targaryen, he is the epitome of Targaryen race supremacy. Like, most Targaryens do not lean into that as heavily as the Valerians did. But Aerion is very much a throwback. He thinks everyone is beneath him. He's talking about the blood of the dragon, and I'm a dragon. So he definitely is like Aerion Targaryen, if you will.
There's also, him riding in jousts, and even in the battle, he's riding a horse in jousts. Arian is a very prominent horse god in Greek mythology. He is the
Poseidon and
son.
Demeter's horse child,
Right.
because they were both
Right.
in horse form when they coupled, so they had a horse baby.
Yeah, and that actually, there's some kind of fascinating roots in Mycenaean mythology from that I won't go into, when both Poseidon and Demeter were more important gods. But yeah, the idea is they were both horses. Arian is the fastest thing on Earth. He is the fastest thing on land or Earth. So when you talk about how much we've leaned into horses as like the Sleipnir horse and being representative of the werewood net, this is another iteration of that.
Ashara is old man with the glamour, so she could be near Ned. Oh, that's cute. No, I don't think so, but that's cute. That's cute. That would be very distracting for Ned. He couldn't maintain the relationship with Catelyn if he had Ashara Dane in the library in a glamour. No. Let's see here.
Sorry, Summy was a little bit too excited before the stream and wouldn't eat, so I brought her in here to eat now.
No worries. Connection between Theon and Baratheon, like Bar Emin, with the bar being son of, like in Aramaic. So, okay. Theo is Greek for deity, like theos or theism. Like a theism is a belief in God.
Right.
So Baratheon, I broke it all down one time. There's a Hebrew word named barat, and there's just a simple idea of wrath, because he is a wrathful storm god. So like wrath, Theon is like a wrathful god. That's what he is symbolizing.
Ours is the fury, yeah.
When you add the N to it, it turns it into an object. A Theon would be a godly object. Theon literally is a tool of the old gods at this point. Like he's become a tool of Bran and the Weirwoods in this in A Dance with Dragons. So I think that's what it's talking about, like divine objects, tools of the gods.
So that is one thing, and if we're talking about like Baratheon as well, Bara, Bara or Barra, in Japanese is roses, and I know that sounds like it's pulling a little bit too far, but it is definitely something that's going on, because one of Robert's bastards is named Bara after her, and she has red hair, like any good person named Rose. And it just fits very well with a lot of the War of the Roses themes that he's giving. You have also Penrose, Courtney Penrose, and House Penrose, which means, to put it simply, if you're using that meaning, Rose King. And so, of course, they are bannermen to the Baratheons, who are Rose gods. And there are a lot of other ways you go into it.
Early in the books, it seems like he's doing a lot. He had that War of the Roses in mind for the early strokes of the action.
Yes, the War of the Five Kings was largely War of the Roses. He kind of moves past it a lot. He did bring a little bit of it back with the Blackfire rebellions, but there's definitely you see Robert Baratheon repeatedly chasing after rose maidens, right? So Lyanna with the Blue Winter Rose. He ends up sleeping with Stannis' wife's sister, who is a Florent with their Blue Winter Rose sigil. So he's doing a lot of rose god symbolism all the time. And that's Bara Theon. It's one of the ways in which he's using it. The Hebrew translation you were talking about is another big one. It's like a kind of a demigod angle that fits very well when you remember that Orys Baratheon was half Targaryen and a bastard. So it's kind of like, the Valyrians are closer to gods than men, right? So it's kind of like implying the demigod nature of being a Targaryen bastard.
All right, we got to try to move a little quicker. The chat is like pages ahead of us. It happened real quick. It's not stuck, by the way. I'm just scrolling more slowly. You can pop out your own chat to see the current chat if you want to, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Have you heard of the wall beyond the wall theory? Look up Antonine Wall. There's some potential hints. We've talked about this before. I think George might be referring to this. There's two places. One, he once describes the line of trees of the haunted forest looking like a second wall beyond the first wall. There's not another actual wall north of the wall, but it could be that Moat Cailin was the first wall, so to speak, and that the ice wall is actually the northern one. So yeah.
That's how I've always tended to think of it, is like we have these two opposing walls, one black wall, one white wall, one human wall, one others wall, you know.
Curious if Kurt Cobain is a possible inspiration for Rhaegar. Somber, sensitive musician with light hair who died too young. Confirmed. Theory confirmed. Reading Rhaegar says yes. Yeah, I don't know if that's really the case, but when you made the videos on breakdown of the Night of Seven Kingdoms, would you talk about the magic of reading? Do you mean in like a general way, how it enriches your life and transports you to a magical land like George Martin's books, or not sure what you mean by that? I need a little more detail. Let's see. Down tuning is Rhaegar and drop D harp tuning. I like it. Anybody can play a harp and drop D tuning. It makes it too easy.
Oh, you're giving me way too much credit.
Let's see here.
I can do voices, I can sing, but anytime I've ever tried to do any kind of instrument, it has been nothing but disaster.
No, Aryans were not said to have blue eyes and white skin. No. That was a mistake
that the Germans made with propaganda. It's not real.
Yeah. They're not a mythical people like elves, so they were said to live in the woods. Like, no. The Indo-Aryans are a specific group of people from the Russian steppe that migrated into India and Iran again about 4,000 years ago. And that's why Iran sounds like Aryan, because it's the same word. And you'll find this word in other Proto-Indo-European cultures. There's versions of it that means things like shining or bright, or like the people who live the right way, or different things like that. So, yeah. Let's see. But George would be critiquing, obviously, 1940s Germany, let's say. Do you think it's possible the Night's Queen could be the leader of the others and is coming back for Jon? Yes, kind of. I do think her spirit could be out there. I think she might be Hands of White Fire Lady in Euron's vision. I don't know that she's coming for Jon, but I think it's possible that either Night's King or Queen or both could be in the Weirwood net. And that might be the same as Nissa Nissa. Hard to see. These are dog comments from 5 minutes ago. Borat is a great movie. Okay. Oh, it's a reading Rhaegar take. That makes sense.
Theon, tool of the gods. Yeah, well put.
What did Carl Tanner do to get sent to the wall? I don't know. That's show talk. I'm not sure. Do you think it's possible that Cold Hands is the reanimated corpse of a member of the Raven's Teeth? No, that's too recent. That's not long ago to me. It makes sense on its own, but that doesn't explain the Old Tongue. He also doesn't have a Weirwood bow, and all the Raven's Teeth had Weirwood bows. So,
yeah, just to contextualize it here, the Old Tongue has not been spoken in Westeros in thousands of years. This is something like Jon does not even recognize a one word in 10, and they're in the north where it hung on the longest. So, like, when he's hearing the giants and some other people beyond the wall use it, he doesn't know anything. And so the fact that Cold Hands knows the Old Tongue, this means he's impossibly ancient. This means he's pre-Andal's coming to Westeros. So, the Raven's Teeth, that's like 100 years ago. So it's definitely not. These are not compatible timelines.
What's the most Song of Ice and Fire Nirvana song? Definitely Lake of Fire.
Yeah.
Going to the Lake of Fire and Fright.
Although I will say I'm partial to Little Black Box.
Oh, well, I mean, Let's not even get started. They're all so good. Let's see. Yes, exactly. Yeah, Hitler was not good at history. Well, intentionally, there was a whole group of people in Germany that were like, see, they were at the same time, real linguists and scientists were on the trail of Proto-Indo-European as a group, as a linguistic group or reconstructed cultural origin group that used to exist. That knowledge, because linguists started figuring that out in the 1800s. I mean, you can't help but notice it when you compare languages, particularly the Vedic Indian, Sanskrit, to like European words and finding the common words. Like this demands an explanation is not a coincidence. So Hitler was jumping on like the premature version of Proto-Indo-European theory and other German historians and things, and they spun it into their own.
It is a stupid and racist way of co-opting culture that isn't really yours, in the same way that you get a lot of modern white supremacists getting really excited about Norse mythology. Like you had the Q shaman, right? One of the people who stormed the Capitol, and he's wearing like animal skins and stuff, and he's got like rune tattoos. He has no idea what's going on. I guarantee you that guy's command of Norse mythology is pathetic. He has no idea what's going on. He learned it all from 4chan.
No, he's not watching Jackson Crawford. He's watching the bad channels. He is.
Right. Go watch Jackson Crawford. I just plugged Jackson Crawford in one of my videos. Go watch Jackson Crawford. Or read
there's good
Jackson
stuff
Crawford.
on YouTube. There's the bad stuff, but there's also the good stuff.
Yeah.
R'hllor, Garth, and Elric are brothers. Parallels. Maybe.
Oh, I don't subscribe to them being literal brothers, but
I don't think that George even thinks about them as real people necessarily. It's a description of, I mean, I don't know. It's
if you want to, I would replace R'hllor with Azor Ahai, and I would say like those are three archetypes rather than three literal brothers. That's not to say that there couldn't have been like three brothers who exemplify these archetypes, but I think we're kind of losing the thread if we're trying to focus on the specifics of this.
Well, some of this discussion is getting a bit in the weeds here in the chat. No, the Indus Valley civilization was in India before the Indo-Aryans showed up. So that's there was some continuity. A lot of the Indus Valley ideas did make it into later Hinduism, which is something that I'm working on researching. I have another channel called Mythic Concepts. I'm locked out of it, but there are 2 videos on there that explain all this history. I'm going to have to start it over. So
yeah, that's unfortunate. But so one thing that we talk about, and this is you from the very early days, David, is talking about how this great meteor shower that created the long night is kind of George's version of the original flood, and something that happened very early on in human history. When you have the flood, it's not just that you're gonna, you flooded the Black Sea through the Aegean, and now salt water has replaced a giant freshwater lake that was very important to humanity. It's not just that. It's also anytime water level raises a few inches, you now have salt water from the ocean all over water tables and rivers and crops all over the world within miles inland. So it is a huge disaster for humanity. It's an ancient cataclysm. A huge percentage of humanity died when that happened. And it was formative. It's why every myth has a flood, or every mythology has a flood myth. And the Indus River Valley was largely spared because the Indus River Valley is up in the mountains. So when you talk about them being shielded and protected, that kind of goes 2 ways. It stopped a lot of migration as well as being something that sheltered people. There was migration, but those migration waves happened later from there.
Proto-Indo-European is a falsehood. Okay, you're gone. It's not. And I'm not here so you can do out of India fucking Hindutva propaganda. Sorry. I've done way too much research into this to allow you to spread misinformation on my page. Sorry. That's a sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, that is conspiracy theory that is contrary to what we know. You can have a conspiracy theory for things we don't know. It's kind of fun sometimes, but there are things that we know for a fact, and that is contrary to it. It's not worth talking about.
That's the whole thing about talking about Proto-Indo-European or any Indian history is like there are these really extreme ideological groups on both sides. There's the Hindu nationalist. All of what looks like Proto-Indo-European came out of India and spread to Europe. There's no evidence for that. It's the purest fiction. And then there's all the friggin' German propaganda that we've been talking about as well. So yeah, it's if you want to, I don't really let that bother me though, because the actual history is very interesting, and we can't be polarized and stigmatized from talking about real history because there are extremist groups with political agendas in both cases trying to muddy the waters and twist everything into ammunition, you know.
Yeah, there would. I mean, we wouldn't be able to talk about the series because of all the, supremacy that has latched onto Norse mythology. Norse mythology is just too important to fantasy literature.
Really hate Nirvana. You're gone too. Oh, it's Steerpike's sister. Oh, I guess I'll have to leave it. No, I'm kidding. And yeah, Lake of Fire is a cover. That's true. Don't let Dave see that, yeah. Mythic Concepts 2, Electric Boogaloo. Yeah, I need... send in your names. I might just call it David Beers. That's the new trend, is to just call your YouTube channel your name and be a thinker, So I might just do that.
List.
Let me get. I'm sorry that the chat. I'm trying to scroll down in an orderly fashion, and it keeps jumping up and jumping on me.
Yeah,
so
when it gets close to the current, it likes to jump. That's where I was a minute ago.
I heard a new theory that Alaris Sorella Sand is swapped child Rhaenys. I don't...
Rhaenys? Which... You mean
Rhaenys was definitely killed by the mountain. There's like no gray area about that. She definitely was.
Yeah, pretty brutal.
She was not a baby that couldn't be recognized easily. Like she was a little girl.
Yeah, they crunched Aegon's head against the wall, so that thing looked like a cooking project that failed. And Rhaenys, though, was not. That body was identified. So,
do you think the Great Other is the shadow of R'hllor? George wrote, foundational Elden Ring lore and Marika and Radagon being a twofold god in one body seems like a glimpse into his mind there. Twofold god in one body. I think so. Really, you got to go back to the last week's stream about the gods of ice and fire that I did with Tim and Sean. We all did it together. No, wait, that was 2 weeks ago.
No, I was not on that one. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that was 2 weeks ago. I do think these meteors are bringing entities. The question is, if one lands in the heart of winter and one lands in a shy, do they evolve into separate deities, or is that the same mind that's connected? Hard to say.
So I think the thing that we need to remember is how George talks about this. The idea of gods being real is something that George said he found uninteresting. He's more interested in how people interpret it. So when we look at things like twofold gods, I think the drowned god and the storm god are a twofold god. Every ocean god in every mythology is a storm god. Storms form in the ocean. The ocean is chaotic. They are always 100% storm gods. So when you talk about a storm god and a drowned god, those two are kind of going to be, they're two halves of the whole. They're two sides of the same coin. One is being interpreted positively, one is being interpreted negatively. So if you look at like R'hllor and the Great Other, I think something similar is going on. You have one where you interpret it positively as a cleansing fire, and then you have the other end where it's, the fire that burns and destroys.
Yes, I think that is right. I think the twist is that both gods are evil. So it's because people think, oh, which one is the good one? Like when I said R'hllor is evil, though, does that mean the Great Other is good? No. These are temperature extremists. You don't want to trust any of them. They represent forces and extreme forms of power. And so it's up to the people to balance things in the middle. That's who the good God is. George is kind of a humanist in this sense. It's like up to us. That's where the real decision is.
It's also
Someone asked what color pants I was wearing. That's why I stood up. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. It's also an interpretation of Norse mythology at its inception. So when you look at how it started, it was Muspelheim and Niflheim, the realm of fire and the realm of ice coming together, and the ice being melted into a liquid that eventually became the giant Ymir or Bergelmir, or and that's kind of how creation started. So the moderate area between the fire and ice is where you get things done. The extremes are bad. And Muspelheim is where the fire giants come from. Niflheim, you end up, it's not clear whether it's really, Jotunheim is kind of a part of that. There aren't actually 9 realms. It's very complicated. But
and even the gods of Valhalla, who are not in either extreme, are sus on their morality as well.
Yeah. And I have too many theories on that and how, Loki's really a hero. But anyway, all of that aside, the point is to stay away from extremes. And that's something that the Norse built into their mythology. It's very important. You can't survive in weather that's too cold. The Vikings are going to know that. And although there are good uses of fire, fire is terrifying and destructive. So the moderate is where life exists, where life starts, where creation starts. And that's something that George has brought directly into A Song of Ice and Fire.
So that reminded me, Ramsay's snow burned Winterfell. Right. Nothing burns like the cold. Ramsay's snow is an other figure, and the other's cold is burning. And so Ramsay's snow burned Winterfell. That seems like a parallel to me.
He's wearing red fire armor while he's a snow and while he's burning an ice place. And yeah, it's all very symbiotic.
And they call it out the pale ice eyes as well. You asked the other day about Malazan. I've read most of Malazan, but no, I'm probably not going to start covering that on my channel. I don't know that the fandom is big enough to support it. Because if I start making videos and a quarter of the people watching them, that's not, I can't do that. I can't afford to do that. I do like it. I think it's a good series. It's a little heavy, it tends to be a little dark and dry for me. It needs a little charm in some places, but there's some stuff in there I will never forget in Malazan. That's for sure.
I'm completely out of the loop. What is Malazan?
Malazan Book of the Fallen is a gigantic sprawling series. There's like 20 books in the series, and
who wrote it?
What's his name? Not Baxter. The chat will tell me, but I have to catch up. Who's the name of the author? It's hella dense. Stephen Erickson. Yeah, Stephen Erickson.
Okay. Wow. I'm completely out of the loop. I'm not used to that.
He's an author with too many degrees. He has too much knowledge. His books are very thorough. And
a real Michael Crichton. Got it.
He wrote a crucifixion scene where you're in the POV of the person being wrongly crucified. That was gnarly. I was listening to that on audiobook in the car, and then I was going to the mall, and that scene started playing. I'm walking through Macy's looking at the sale rack, and somebody's being crucified, and I had to walk out of the store and just sit down. I was like, this is too intense. This is gnarly as fuck. Like, what's going on?
No, the clothes racks started looking too real to you?
I wasn't even there. I was being nailed up with this guy. Oh yeah, chain of dogs, exactly. Yeah, that was crazy. Is anyone ever rightly crucified? Well, not if you believe in capital punishment is wrong, which I would agree with, but this wasn't a criminal is the point. It was a political, wow. Yeah, that was gnarly. There's also, the point of view of some Cro-Magnon blood ritual ceremony or something like that. He does some really creative stuff. Yeah, Coltane, the legend. All right, yeah. So let's wrap up the Malazan stuff. Most people don't know what we're talking about.
Sorry.
Ramsay would be like Surtur. Well, the biggest Surtur comparisons we found is with Jon and Stannis, actually.
Yeah, and that's more of George challenging who is the hero, who's the villain, softening his villains, hardening his heroes, etc. So it's Jon and Stannis both doing things that destroy the wall, that, air quotes, burn down the wall, blah blah blah. So yes, the fiery sword is something that Surtur steals. So Jon having a magical sword, Stannis having a magical fiery sword, like these are definitely things where we should be thinking Surtur more so than Ramsay. But Ramsay is showing a lot of Jon Snow. He's like if a Jon Snow went evil.
Yes, exactly right. So they have a lot of similar symbolism. It just goes a different way. Do I ever try Elden Ring? I mean, no, I've never played it, but we did do a 3-hour Elden Ring Ice and Fire stream. It's in the live streams tab. It's an Elden Ring Lore Summit about it a year ago with Michael Talks and Eldrick Stoneskin. So check that out. Yes, I'm very aware that a lot of George's magical ideas for Ice and Fire got put in Elden Ring, definitely.
Yeah.
Is it possible Bran is based on Paul Atreides? There are some commonalities. I would say that it's more like George giving a commentary on some of the same ideas with what Dune has going on in mind. There are some, like if you look at the Dornish, they're a little Dune-like, they're a little Fremen-like.
Yeah. So this is definitely something I have to push back on, and not just. So first off, I just put out a video on Greek mythology and Dune on Patreon. Please go watch it. And I'm about to put out a video on Egyptian mythology, being basically the story of Dune, almost 1-to-1. It's very direct.
That's interesting.
Yes, it is, and you would like it. But anyway, very much. George is very much not a fan of Frank Herbert. I don't think it's a lack of respect thing. I think it is very much a philosophical difference, because Frank Herbert does not believe in heroes. He has a very bleak view of humanity. He was a Republican speechwriter. He's definitely not somebody that George R.R. Martin would be friends with. J.R.R. Tolkien also hated Dune. He had somebody be like, give him a copy, a friend of his, like, hey, this is a really great, fantasy sci-fi. You should read it. He read it and straight up returned the book. He didn't even want to keep the book. He hated it. They both hated it. And a lot of it has to do with their philosophy. Like Tolkien very much believes in the struggle against evil, light versus dark. George is not quite so basic in terms of the way he paints it. But like you always say, he's very careful to show good people doing selfless things to try to make the world better, even as there are villains.
George has the same philosophy as Tolkien, actually. He just has a different view on like the percentages of like how much of the world is actually dark. But yeah, if you get into Silmarillion, it's full of gray characters, and like even the ones in Tolkien have gray characters. Gandalf is gray. He's more than a gray wizard. He's gray in his actions. Obviously, everything having to do with Frodo and his relationship with Gollum is very like morally ambiguous. It's hard to figure out what the right thing to do is. Should he have killed Gollum? Should he not have? All this stuff. Obviously, Boromir is the one people bring up as the most obvious gray character. But yeah, I think George has a similar philosophy as Tolkien and wanted to evolve some of those ideas a little further and explore them further. Not just Aragorn's tax policy, but, what would elves really be like and things like that. But there's more sex in Ice and Fire. There's more graphic violence. But philosophically, I think they're similar. They do believe that the story lies in good people trying to do the right thing, even in overwhelmingly difficult circumstances. Like once you lock into Sam and Frodo in Mordor, that's got the feel of a lot of Ice and Fire. It's like no chance and no choice, right?
Right. Tolkien very much wanted it to feel like an epic fairy tale that was a combination of all his favorite mythologies. George is trying to make it all feel a little bit real, thus the sex, thus the more graphic descriptions of violence, etc. So, but yes, I agree. It's a very similar philosophy there. And Frank Herbert does not have a similar philosophy. He does not.
Frank Herbert is the nihilist that people think George is. Go ahead.
Right, right. And you can see it because the fact is no matter how they've, adapted it to screen every number of ways where they show Dune as a basic hero's journey story, in the actual books, Paul is not presented as a hero. He's presented as somebody who allowed a jihad to happen. Billions of people across the galaxy die so that he can essentially go back to living as a noble, get revenge on the people he doesn't like, and survive.
And the
when he
thing
could
that
have
really
prevented-
annoys me, Sean, if I could interrupt real quick, the thing that annoys me is that like leading, and this was even more obvious in the movie, the Fremen overthrowing the Imperial powers on Arrakis is incredibly just. And yet it's depicted as the thing that led to this horrible jihad and stuff. So it's like, oh, so there's no right answers. We should have let the imperialism carry on then or something, I guess. Revolutions are bad. Like, what's the message here?
Well, and what Frank Herbert has said very directly is beware of messiahs. That's his message. So,
Right.
and to be clear, I'm a fan of Dune. I am not a fan of Frank Herbert's personal philosophy.
Sure.
He's a very skilled writer, and I would not have done two very.
Well, that's how I
in-depth
feel about
videos.
Ender's Game, and the
Orson
the
Scott
second Ender's Game book is even better. What was that one? Speaker for the Dead. But
Speaker
that
for the
guy's
Dead.
views are pretty twisted. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I would not have done, two in-depth videos on Frank Herbert's books if I did not love them. He's a fantastic writer, very skilled. He's doing amazing things with mythology, nearly on the level of somebody like Tolkien, and it's good stuff. I don't think he was a very good human being. He was super abusive towards his kids. He had a gay son who he disowned. A dog peed in the car, so he left it in Mexico and drove home. Like, he's not a good guy.
Wow.
Yeah, to be
Someone
clear,
is saying
Frank
that it's not necessarily fair to describe Herbert as a nihilist. Would you agree, or is there a better word?
I think we're kind of making too many distinctions here. I think that
So I'm trying to describe like a
maybe
lack
you
of
could argue
hope
that he's not a
and a lack
nihilist.
of belief. Like the whole point of stories in the classic sense is that the person who does the right thing, eventually it pays off in some way. Even Ned dies, but his lived example is this powerful thing that galvanizes people for the rest of the story. So he's
Right,
still
there's
winning
loyalty.
in the end. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's loyalty among everybody who ever knew him. The North is rising for him. They're fighting to save his baby girl, even though it's not actually his daughter. Yeah, that is not a thing in Frank Herbert's Dune. It's, if you really look at it, it's pretty fascist. Like he describes himself as an anarchist, but the reality is he has his galaxy ruled for 700 years by an all-powerful, all-knowing, authoritarian dictator who spies on all of his citizens, who kills like something like 15 to 20% of them, grinds them into dust. He's the Ubermensch using an
Well,
authoritarian.
everything in Dune is fascist. Like all the different societies are like trying to engineer how people live and stuff. I mean, it's inherently fascist idea. Speaking more
Yes.
loosely with the definition of it, but it's like it's the heart of fascism is control. And it's controlling how other people live their lives because you feel threatened by that. Like that's what it comes down to emotionally. And so that's what you see in Dune. Like all these different organizations, they're trying to engineer society and control how people live.
When we're saying,
So
what's that quote over there? We are the only true anarchists. It's like the no true Scotsman of anarchy. But yeah, it's Frank Herbert, not a good guy. Tim's in the chat talking about like, yep, separate the art from the artist. He's talking about, of course, it's Lovecraft, right?
well, I don't even think it's separate. I think Lovecraft makes more sense when we read it with the knowledge of who he is and like what kind of fear, like, because he's writing about fear. So a lot of Lovecraft's fear, when you understand his racial biases and sort of, a lot of it is fear-based. I mean, what is racism if not fear of the other that turns into hate, right?
Everything is fear-based. He's afraid. He was agoraphobic. He's afraid of wide open spaces. So he was afraid of outer space. So that's where his gods come from.
And
He was
that's why
afraid
he
of
could write
ocean.
about fear so authentically, right?
Right. And he was afraid of the ocean. So he has these gods from outer space, alternate dimensions coming in through the bottom of the ocean in this grimy, rotted, smelly ocean aesthetic. Like, it's all about what he's actually afraid of. And then, of course, race.
So, Kolnitsky, it's easy to call everything fascism because a lot of things are fascist, especially right now. That's why it's easy. Because fascism is like, it is something that is around in human society and has always been around. It will never go away. There will always be people that are obsessed with controlling how other people live, and they're going to do that through government control. So
right.
When we use fascism, there's different contexts for it. Like, you can use a word in a more broad term, or we could speak more specifically. We're talking about, okay, this government, is it more in common with classic fascist governments, or is it more, like this or whatever? And sometimes people mean totalitarianism. But to me, fascism, people do fascism because they think a certain way. And the way that they're thinking is, I don't like it when people are different than me, and I'm going to do something violent about that. Like, that's what it comes down to for me. So there's a lot of different definitions. There's the 14, elements, defining elements of a fascist government that's been going around on the internet forever.
And it's, first off, it was intended to be fascist. We're not calling it fascist because we call everything fascist. It was literally intended to be fascist in Dune. This isn't a political statement. He intended it to be fascist. So
yes, fascism is capitalism in crisis. I think capitalism does always drift in that direction, and that's why it has to be heavily regulated by people who have the interests of the people in mind.
Right.
Because unregulated capitalism we've seen it. It does drift towards techno-fascism, and that's where we are now. So.
Well, it's all about extremes again. When you get too extreme into capitalism, you get fascism. When you get too extreme into socialism, you get communism, and which ends up becoming authoritarianism as well, because it's just too hard to run. You need a system that moderates the worst tendencies of both. You need to not necessarily meet in the middle, but the point is there are negative things to any system. So if you're using a system at its most basic and you are not regulating it or anything, it's just not going to work. Like, there have to be safeguards in place to protect the system from itself. And when you fail those, you get communism, you get fascism, whichever end of the spectrum you're on.
Summer's right. So a couple of very important hallmarks of fascism: the powerful, charismatic leader or series of leaders, and then aggressive nationalism. Yes, absolutely. In fact, all nationalism is the first step towards fascism. I am not a flag waver. I have never been. I think you can love your country and be proud of your country without going into like actual real nationalism. So I don't really ever think that's a good thing myself.
I think it is unpatriotic to be nationalist. If you really want to be patriotic, you criticize your country when it's wrong because you want it to be better.
That's right.
So if you're not, and if you don't have that error, nobody's right all the time. So you need to criticize your country, whether it's not even about the country, yourself, your family, your friends. When they're wrong, there needs to be discussion on that kind of thing. It's how you improve. It's how you do better. And if you are essentially just backing something no matter what, that's tribalism. And it's not, it always has bad results.
And that's what fascism is asking you to do. It's asking you to prioritize loyalty to the leader and loyalty to the party over what's right and wrong and over other individuals. That's the whole point of nationalism, is to get people to compromise all of their morals and beliefs, essentially, for this greater cause, which is the state. Yeah, absolutely. So and another important part of fascism is the merging of state and business interests.
Yeah.
And we are seeing that there's different ways that can happen. Right now, I would say mostly the business interests are operating the government like a sock puppet. But it boils down to, like look at AI, okay? AI has, as we know, many problems with this. The technology that is called AI, let's use that definition. There's the environmental issue. There is the social issues, such as LLMs leading people to suicide or just encouraging people down their sort of weird ideations. The people that have fallen in love with their chat GPTs and things like that. There is the issue of the inflation of the economy, the bubble aspect. That's what people are talking about now. And the thing is, this technology is being pushed on people, even though it's not profitable. So why is that happening? Like whenever there's things that are being just rolled out and no one really wants it, you have to ask what's going on there. And it's like, oh yeah, this is a bunch of corrupt handshaking between governments and large corporations. And it's happening in the UK. It's happening here. This is not news to literally anyone. This is literally just what's happening. So
That's where the regulations are important to keep that kind of thing apart. That is something that happened in Nazi Germany, where at the start, the corporations had an outrageous amount of control because they had the money. You had a bunch of captains of industry basically running the country, and they thought that they could control Hitler. And eventually they couldn't. And that's how it always happens. And that is what is happening in Dune. You know, to bring this conversation back, we have the CHOAM company, CHOAM. That's the company that, you know, is distributing the spice. And
Okay.
everybody and all wealth in the universe flows from how many CHOAM shares you have. And the emperor has the highest percentage of CHOAM shares. So it's very much talking about the, you know, how corporatism being in bed with fascism, it's a synergistic relationship, but eventually one has to kind of take precedent, and it's usually the figurehead of fascism. So that's how it works in Dune. It was very much meant to show fascism because, to be clear, Frank Herbert had a lot of fascist tendencies. He was not a Nazi. He hated Nazis. He had anarchist tendencies. He had some fascist tendencies, but not Nazi flavored.
So I would say that basically oligarchy is a component of most fascist governments that we have seen. It doesn't necessarily have to be, but it tends to be. It tends to
It's
be.
kind of how it starts. So like
Yeah.
you have an oligarchic representation where it's a lot of captains of industry and wealthy people who are a big voice in the government, but eventually they become less important to the fascist figurehead. And I wouldn't necessarily call Russia fascist. It's definitely authoritarian, but that's what
Mhm.
happened over there. They had an oligarchy that ran things, but eventually Putin became more powerful.
And XGN is saying being African and knowing our history made me realize it's always been all corporate controlled fascism veiled under capitalism or other, socialism or communism. That's a very good point.
Yeah.
If you look at the first wave of colonialism, like these are all essentially corporations that are being formed by the crown or in partnership with the crown. And so King Leopold owns the corporation that is exploiting the Congo. So that is right. It is different. There's different ways to get there, but essentially that's what you have. Is you have you have the business interests and the power of the government together, and then you get military force being applied around the world so that we can do colonialist exploitation, and that's been
Right.
going on for 400 years. So it's
Yeah, you look at British East India Company being like the biggest
the
proponent of
Dutch, the
this.
Dutch
Well,
Royal, and the British East India. Yeah, those two.
yeah.
Much blood on the hands. Much blood. So yeah, what were we talking about?
Yeah, we should try to get back to like a Song of Ice and Fire here.
Well, I think we were talking about the different philosophies of Tolkien
Right.
and Herbert and Martin.
Please go see my Dune videos. The Egypt one's coming soon. I'm editing it right now. It's already shot and everything. Yeah.
That's cool. Well, I always love talking about this other stuff. So, but if anybody has any questions they want to throw, I'll grab them. Do you think George's decision to kill John and have him eventually be resurrected could be inspired by the stories surrounding King Arthur's death and burial place and the myth of Holger the Dane? So I talked about Holger the Dane in the last hero video, and I definitely think it's part of the King of Winter mythology. There is so much resurrection mythology that George is tying together. It's hard to say one place where it comes from.
Is he referencing that? Yes, 100%, but he's also referencing 10 other things. So, like, yes, Jon Snow is a secret king who did not know he was a king growing up. Yes, that's King Arthur stuff. You know, did he became Lord Commander of the Night's Watch because he was deemed worthy. They voted him in. That's like, pulling Excalibur from the stone. And of course, he has a magic sword. So, like, yes, he's doing King Arthur stuff there. He's doing King Arthur stuff in a bunch of other places.
He's doing Mordred stuff too, kind of, isn't he?
He's usually combining Arthur and Mordred in any character. It's the thing that he always does, where he combines. If he's referencing something, he combines the White Knight hero and the Dark Lord villain into one character that is more gray. If he's Arthur, who's his Lancelot? Well, there are a lot of Lancelots. There's the entire house of Lannister, which, if you didn't know they were playing Lancelot, there's a character called Lancel. So that's definitely, I mean, he's not being super subtle that way. But there are a bunch of characters named after different knights of the Round Table. Like, there's
yeah. No, we've talked about it. Galahad and Galadon and Arthur Dane, and there's a ton of it. Let's see. The Silmarillion, yes, the Silmarillion thing is happening to us. Me and Sean had a meeting about it this week. I downloaded the Kindle and I started taking a look at how many pages are in the different sections, and we are forming a plan, so it will happen soon.
It's really a question of what we're going to read, how thoroughly. There are large parts of it that we want to read all of it, because it's, in addition to it being great, symbolic, and well written, it's just very poetic. It's good reading.
I love Silmarillion.
It's too much material to probably read all of it verbatim.
We'll see. We might do the first bit and see how long it takes us, and then form a plan based on that. We're definitely going to read all of the creation sequences. So
well done. Yeah.
And by the way, Silmarillion is the first fantasy book I ever read on my own. I think I was read The Hobbit, not The Hobbit. C.S. Lewis, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, all that stuff around the same time. But I read Silmarillion when I was like 9 or 10. And it inspired me a lot. I've loved fantasy ever since then. So I was very happy to start learning that there was a lot of Silmarillion influence in Ice and Fire, and I have torn into little parts of it. But I think just reading through the Silmarillion will be fun, because we'll just be pointing left and right. We'll be like, oh, look at this. This is where George got that. It'll be a turn of phrase or an idea or a symbol, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, George loves Lord of the Rings. He loves everything that J.R.R. Tolkien's ever done. But he said that the Silmarillion was his favorite of the works in Middle-earth. He really just loves the fact that, like, when it's written as a history, but the characters still feel real, it makes him feel like the world is real in a way that it didn't before that, when you're kind of just dropped in the world point of view. It made the world feel more lived in for him. And it's why he wrote A World of Ice and Fire. That was his Silmarillion. It was meant to be, a Maester version of the same idea.
Yeah, and George has also been working, like, I always say that the ancient legends and all the symbolism that's buried inside the main story is George writing the Silmarillion inside of the main story, in a way. Like, he's putting a lot of references to the past in the main story because he wants to develop this. Tolkien was writing the Silmarillion as he was writing Lord of the Rings and other things. Like, it began at the very beginning, and he was working on it through his whole life and his whole career.
Yeah. So I actually go through a lot of it in my Tolkien videos on Sigurd and Beowulf, because it's kind of just necessary context. But yeah, he wrote out the scene for Beren and Luthien before, or actually during World War I.
Yeah, that was one of the first things he ever wrote.
Right. So while he was living on base in England, training people and doing logistics, he was living with his wife, and he wrote that scene while he was out in the woods with her. It's a very beautiful scene, and they actually put it on their tombstones. So it's it's adorable.
That's touching.
He loved her very much, and it's very much, she's older than him too. So it was a Beren Luthien, it was an Aragorn Arwen thing. There's a lot of self-insert into that. It's fantastic, but
that's cool.
He didn't write it in the linear way that we were presented the series. He wrote The Fall of Gondolin just after World War I.
That was kind of his Direwolves in the Snow, the hidden city of Gondolin. It was just this idea that he had, and a lot of things ended up being formed around it. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it's kind of a jumble because he was just writing parts of the world out because he based it all on the language. He just loves language so much. He wrote all these languages. He wrote the world as a place to play with the languages. So the language for him comes first.
Yeah, I would just to say to the comment that was deleted, you don't always have to mention the specific examples of these various fascist states. It's sometimes helpful to talk about the principles and then let people apply them. But I'm sure we're probably applying them to the same governments. So, just respect where I leave the conversation. I will just ask you to. If you want to follow me on Twitter, there'll be no shortage of naming the particulars and the specific bad actors. But yeah, I feel like the way to keep the conversation somewhat reined in and the chat not too off the rails is to talk about the principle of it, as opposed to diving into specific areas around the world where then it gets into, everybody's opinion on that part of the world and their version of the facts and all this stuff. By just talking about the principle of fascism, it's a little more cross applicable to the story that we're ostensibly talking about. So,
yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty integral to fantasy just because of the way that the fantasy genre developed. We look at fantasy, definitely it started long before and it merged with mythology if you go back far enough. But when we look at modern fantasy, so much of it comes from people like Tolkien and Frank L. Baum, etc. And they had extremely developed views on authoritarianism, politics, all of these things. Frank
you
L.
have
Baum
to.
was
How can you
early.
create a whole pretend world if you're not thinking about different worldviews, different ways that people organize themselves in societies? I mean, you can't.
Right. Well, and that's, you look at if you're somebody who you have a heart and you put that heart into a series that you're writing, you have to have some thoughts on some of the injustices that go on in the world. And that's just going to be interpreted through the way that you write your series. So like there is a lot of commentary in things like The Wizard of Oz about political systems. He wrote that very pointedly. And, lest we forget, that was before Lord of the Rings. So the evolution of fantasy has always had a commentary on politics. That's why politics are so often so important in fantasy. And it's why George R. R. Martin has all of this political intrigue in his series, because it's important. It's where he puts in his philosophy.
Well said. Well said. Yeah. And I think somebody in the chat earlier was mentioning like Tolkien and Martin, while they have like similar philosophies, you can like Tolkien is a little bit more of a prude Victorian upbringing. George is an uncouth American hippie who loves horror quite a lot. Like Tolkien is probably not a fan of horror. George Martin definitely is. So that's why there's like these textural differences. But at the end of the day, Brienne standing up to the mummers at the inn is the same thing as Sam and Frodo marching into Mordor against all odds,
Well, and dude, you really need to watch my Patreon video on Sam and Shelob at some point. Just because, so it's heavy sexual symbolism. Because one of the reasons why Tolkien was a prude is because he was writing in England at a certain time. You could not write about certain things, but he didn't want it. He did want a certain amount of realism about the human experience in it that he couldn't necessarily write at the narrative level. So he put that sexual symbolism in. It was straight from Grendel and Beowulf and Grendel's mother,
right?
From his favorite story. But yes, there's heavy sexual symbolism, but it did have to be several layers deep in order for him to feel comfortable writing it because, not to put too fine a point on it, Victorian.
Yeah, times were different.
Yeah.
That's cool. That does make sense, yeah. And Yeah, and I definitely didn't mean it as a pejorative, just different
Oh, no.
upbringing, So
No, you're good. I just wanted to give some flavor to that. Because, I mean, there are.
you've
If
expanded
you
on
go
that
back,
once. I heard you talk about Shelob in more detail. We've done that before. It was very interesting. But
yeah, and I
we'll
mean, if
come
you go
back to
back,
that because we're going to talk about Ungoliant when we read Silmarillion,
right.
obviously.
Well, and those are the stand-ins. It was that scene was originally supposed to be a battle between Ungoliant and Eärendil. So, yeah, the sexual symbolism made a little bit more sense then. But I mean, if you go back and read it, Sam thrusting upward into the spider's abdomen as she screams, and she has lips somehow. Anyway, they're like, you go back and read it, it jumps out to you when you're thinking of it. But just at a narrative level, and especially because most of us started reading it at like 8 years old or 10 years old, we don't think about it that way.
Right. Yeah, and then you don't go back to reanalyze it unless you do really read it word for word. Yeah, the movie's not going to get that across.
Yeah.
I'm now
Sorry.
mentally scarred, Sean. Thanks. Yeah,
Sorry. I'm sorry. Tommy of Then, lips. Yes. Lobe literally means lip. Like the lobe of an ear is a lip of an
she
ear.
lobe.
So she lip, that is what he means. I'm sorry. But it's very well done.
No one emerges from Shalob's lair unscathed and unscarred.
No, and it's the Cave of Night. Like you've talked about the Cave of Night so many times. Shalob is like Nyx.
I
So is
think you're blowing
Ungoliant.
some minds in the chat here.
Please
Got
go
those
watch my
tears.
Patreon video. It's called Tolkien's Lost Scene, Light in Dark Places. Go watch.
No one delete any of these comments. These are all okay.
Oh, what have I done?
Yeah. All right. So yeah, the Silmarillion is something that is we will get into, and we'll try to pull some of this conversation out when we do. So that was a
Oh,
preview,
yeah.
I guess.
I'm so excited because this. I mean, we've covered A Song of Ice and Fire for so long, and we love it. But like, we all got our start on Tolkien. All of us fantasy nerds got our start in Tolkien, and he really is the best. He's so good.
Well, and
It's
just in just the same way that most Ice and Fire channels focus on the main story, most of the exceptional Lord of the Rings YouTube channels, such as Nerd of the Rings, which I watch regularly, and Jess of the Shire, who we both are a fan of, most of those channels are focusing on the main story. Jess gets into some more mythology. I will give her credit. She definitely does.
She did. I want to actually contact her because she was kind of on the cusp of a lot of the things that I was talking about because I actually kind of to my detriment sometimes ignore narrative. But
She knows her mythology. She definitely does. Yeah.
she's good. I would like to contact her at some point. Men of the West is another channel that I would throw in that
I've watched
they're also
them.
that way. Yeah.
I was just going to say most of them are very concerned with getting the lore right. In the Tolkien fandom, that is the big thing. Is like, what did Tolkien mean? What did Christopher Tolkien's notes about what Tolkien said mean? There's some things that Tolkien isn't consistent about because at different parts in his career, he was exploring different ideas about like how the dragons came to be or something like that. And so if you really want to be an expert, you have to know about all these letters and the different versions of the things that are going on. What I want to contribute to this is my typical thing that we do here, or our typical thing, like diving into the mythical archetypes, where Tolkien got a lot of this in different folklore, and then comparing that to what we know about Ice and Fire. So I do think we'll bring a different like perspective on it, hopefully.
Yeah. No, it's just it's I love it. Although you're absolutely right about, how important it is to get every detail right with the lore. Tolkien fans are brutal. And I was terrified to put those videos out. But
They
I think I
are.
did a pretty good job. And I think, when you're talking about these archetypes and things, there's one more thing just to kind of, convince people to reread Tolkien, not just the Sam and Shelob thing, but when I say that Shelob and Ungoliant are playing a certain amount of Nyx, Nyx had 3 daughters, and they were sorry, not 3, but 1. They had the Fates. They had the goddess of. Oh, damn it! I'm losing it. I'm losing my thread. But anyway, the point is like,
you have the Fate sisters, right, who are weavers, and of course, Shelob weaves Frodo into a little cocoon. You have the goddess or god of sleep and the god of death, right? So like they thought that Frodo was dead, but really he was asleep. So like there are ways that Tolkien is including all of these little influences on the way. So it's just going back through Tolkien, especially when you've spent as much time like on our channels, looking through this kind of stuff, it really helps you on Tolkien rereads when you know what to look for.
Yeah, you can see where George was inspired to write in a mythical way, but then sort of took it further in some senses. But there's a lot in common. You can really see it. Yeah, I feel the same way. Reading the Silmarillion is totally different now. Like the scene with who's the elf that wounds Morgoth with Ringil?
So that was Fingolfin.
Fingolfin. That's such a great scene. You could see, I mean, it's straight mythical astronomy symbolism, the ice and the starlight and all these things to describe the weapons and the armor. You can definitely see that George was massively inspired by it. So,
yeah, well, and then he's carried off by the eagle of Zeus. Sorry, Manwë. No, it's very well done.
Frodo of the Nine Fingers. I'm a little raspy today.
Oh my God, that the Hobbit movie and that Return of the King movie by Rankin and Bass, those songs are fire. And there's like a dubstep set of covers of those, and they're so good.
I want to hear the dubstep covers. I can't believe I didn't know about those. I love the music on those movies. I am well known as a fan of the rotoscope style, the music, all of it. It's beautiful, exceptional stuff.
Oh yeah, they're fantastic. And for anybody who hasn't seen them, go see them. That Rankin and Bass 1978 Hobbit, it's fantastic. There's like a 1980-81 Return of the King where they skipped Fellowship and then Two Towers and just did Return of the King with a fire soundtrack that had no right to hit that hard.
Well, send me the link to the dubstep remix. I want that. It's on YouTube. That's cool. Somebody knows about it.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. Wheel of Time. Is it too on the nose with its mythical symbolism? Wheel of Time, it is not as smoothly integrated as what George does. I will give you that. Because George doesn't just do one parallel with anything. He's like, who are all the resurrected sword kings? I'll combine them all. Who are all the tree gods? I will combine them all. So that way it becomes a lot more complex and subtle.
It's also George's commentary on humanity as a whole. So he is trying to unite that symbolism that's common to all of us. So he picks the characters that are the same in each mythology, or similar rather, and combines them for that reason. When other fantasy authors, they may have different goals. So when their symbolism or their parallels are a little bit more on the nose, that may be a feature, not a bug. They're not trying to write the same story that George is. George is trying to get you bogged down in reality and talk about humanity in his stories. And so he makes it very subtle, but he's also referencing all those things at the same time. It's a writing style that has to do with their message.
And Tolkien he was a professor of literature, correct?
So he was a professor of language. He was a philologist. Yeah, and at two different colleges, but most famously at Oxford. And he had a little group called the Inklings with a bunch of professors in language and literature. And C.S. Lewis was in it, among others. There were a bunch of famous professors who all ended up
right
doing important stuff. But it's worth looking into. There's actually a movie called The Inklings.
So my point of bringing that up was just that, like George, Tolkien is familiar with more than just one mythology. He's weaving in Germanic, Norse, certainly Gaelic, Irish, and Welsh folklore. The language is closest to Finnish that he did, so that you're going to get some different mythology there, more consistent with like Eastern European mythology. And so there's at least all those elements, and I would guess some Greek and other things in there too, probably. So
Yes, a lot of Greek gods, especially when he was designing the Valar pantheon. He leaned heavily on Greek mythology.
And obviously, Christian mythical ideas are in there too.
Oh yeah, yeah. Frodo carrying the ring as it gets heavier and heavier across the desert of Mordor. Like it's obviously the cross. It's Jesus on the cross, but it's also doing Beowulf things. But Beowulf was heavily based on Jesus, so it's like a lot of stuff going on there. But
Well, and all the
yeah,
Norse mythology is influenced by Christianity because it wasn't written down until after the entire Norse world had been Christianized. So, yeah.
right. And he's very aware of that. So, having done some of the best translations of a lot of these things personally. So, and thank you, Christopher Tolkien, for having all of these things for us, because they all would have rotted, in J.R.R. Tolkien's study, if not for his son, who is also a brilliant philologist and was the only person close enough to his work to really represent it properly. So, we gotta love Christopher Tolkien. He's a hero in this house.
Yeah, so Tolkien was smitten by a public reading of the Kaleva and the Kalevala, the Finnish epic. And that honestly is a very foundational story. It has a lot of Proto-Indo-European mythology in it. So it touches on a lot of universal archetypes and ideals.
Right. Well, and for him, like we said, the language always comes first. He was obsessed with language. He wrote his first fully functional language with consistent grammar rules and everything when he was 17. So when we talk about, like, yes, he's referencing Finnish mythology and stuff like that. Yes, he is, because he represented the Finnish language tree in the series. Orcish is based on Finno-Ugric. So like he's in like you said, Finnish and various, borrowing from various other Germanic and Norse languages is how he came up with Elven. So he's looked into this a lot, and he's fluent in over 30 languages. It's truly wild.
And when someone said, "Oh, some of the names sound Celtic," well, yeah, that's because all the Irish and Gaelic stuff, that's all post-Celtic. I mean, they're Celtic, but like originally, there's Celtic culture starts in Central Europe and spreads out pretty quick, and then you have all these different similar tribes that are kind of networked, but not in a unified nation, but similar shared culture. And so the Celtic language was pretty much spread everywhere, and then it diversified different ways in England and Ireland. But yeah, those are all similar tree there.
Right. And once he brought in the Celtic languages and the effect that Celtic had on languages like English, he gets into the mythology. So Sauron is heavily based on, you've talked about it a lot before, Baelor of the Evil Eye. And it's not the only thing. Like the Balrogs are based on Baelor and Beorog. They're even, the name combined. A lot of, Maiden in a Tower stuff is based on it. Like he brings the mythology in because of the language.
And Finnish is a very unique a language. That's correct. Some of the mythology of the Kalevala is Proto-Indo-European. Their language is not. The Finnish people are a mix of like native hunter-gatherers from that area and people that came from Northeast Asia. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a pretty interesting origin story. I'm not going to try to summarize it any further than that, but it is not grouped with all the other Germanic Norse stuff. It is very different. Yeah.
So my cousin is watching the stream, and he just he texted me just now the YouTube link to the dubstep version of "Rolling Down the Hole." From the Hobbit.
Can't wait to listen to this.
Oh, he's a little troll. I love him though. He's way into all this stuff.
Shout out to your cousin. That's cool. That's
Jacob.
Cool. I think Finnish sounds silly, like gnomes pretending to be an adult. I can't take them seriously as a people, unfortunately. That's got to be humor.
I hope so. Is that's like it's funny if it's satire, but that's like almost racist. So let's move past that.
Yeah, careful there. Anyway, all right. So I think that's probably a good place to leave it. Little variety, hour and a half for you guys after our chapter read. So hope I hope we got him excited for the Silmarillion reads. I'm excited. I think we did. Yeah. I think we have built hype for that. And like I said, Cold Hands, it's coming. Be excited. Big deal. Big video. Lots of work going into it. So yeah.
Oh, it's nice. I've been a creator now for over a year, trying to make my own videos, and I've come out with a lot. But it's nice to just kind of sit back and be a fan every once in a while. I'm really excited about the Cold Hands video. He's my favorite character.
Oh, well, thanks, Sean. That means a lot.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
He's one of my favorites too. So stop calling him a meat puppet. It's not a meat puppet.
And he's
Now,
he's not controlled by Blood Raven.
He's his own dead person. Do you guys think George read some Vertigo comics? I don't know what that is. Do you?
Vertigo.
He likes comics, but most of the 60s and 70s stuff, so I wouldn't know. Thank you, Jurassic Ovaries.
Oh, apparently it's like, so Vertigo comics with adult content such as nudity, drug use, profanity, graphic violence. I don't know about that, but I do know that George was reading comics in the 80s when they started really getting into things like drug use, where like Speedy got addicted to meth, and like, certain characters like had overdoses or got murdered or whatever. When comics got really gritty with like Garth Ennis in the 80s, I know George was still reading. So I don't know about Vertigo comics specifically. I literally don't know anything, but I know he was paying attention to comics as they got more adult.
Yeah, you'd have to tell us. Cool, guys. Vertigo had Sandman and John Constantine. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's cool.
He knows Sandman and he knows John Constantine. Sandman was written by Neil Gaiman, so he absolutely knows Sandman. He's a fan of Neil Gaiman. John Constantine, he definitely knows, because John Constantine is a character who was invented in Swamp Thing, who's like your typical Green Man protector literally the protector of the green. So John Constantine, being kind of a chaotic wizard character who lit shit on fire in the green, was a villain originally in Swamp Thing, but he was just so well liked that he eventually became his own character. And
are they going to do more Sandman TV series, or does that get canceled with Neil Gaiman?
I think it might get canceled with Neil Gaiman. That's unfortunate too. Yeah, he's a great writer, but apparently he might actually just be a terrible person. But
because the symbolism of Brienne playing Lucifer when she already has all the Venus symbolism was just, chef's kiss.
So good. It's so good. But yeah, there's also so the guy who's writing Swamp Thing, when they created Constantine, that was some early work of what's his name, who wrote V for Vendetta, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and Watchmen. What's his name?
Watchmen is
Alan Moore.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was early Alan Moore. That was one of his first projects in comics, as he took over Swamp Thing, and nobody cared about it for like 10 years before that, and all of a sudden he turned Swamp Thing into must read. He's a crazy anarchist, but he's brilliant.
Yeah, Alan Moore is somebody that I respect. He's someone that, like, I don't necessarily agree with all of his philosophy, but it's like challenging in an interesting, thought-provoking way.
He's a very interesting guy, brilliant writer, and yeah, that was him. So
like, you get the feeling he agrees with Rorschach a little more than you'd be comfortable with.
Yeah, but I think he also recognizes that Rorschach is a little nuts at the same time. So it's like, that's the part of me that's nuts, and I wish it were smaller.
Yeah, I was very disappointed to hear that he did not like the new Watchmen series, because I thought the new Watchmen series was friggin' brilliant.
Yeah, it was.
But
good.
He's kind of a curmudgeon, so
it's not his style though, so I get it.
I really liked New Watchmen. I thought it was brilliant.
I liked it too, and I liked the adaptation for the most part.
I did too.
The Zack Snyder. I saw that at midnight at the Metreon in San Francisco. Some guy dressed as Rorschach started fighting some guy dressed as Ozymandias. It was crazy. Not literally fighting.
That's cool.
Fighting. Yeah, it was cute.
He dislikes all adaptations of his work. Yeah, exactly. He's kind of a curmudgeon.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's okay. We can enjoy it anyway. So, all right, guys. I will talk to you later. Thanks for coming. Thank you, Sean. See you this week with a new video, and peace.